Merci, Madame la vice-secrétaire générale des Nations Unies, Monsieur le directeur exécutif de l'Agence internationale de l'énergie, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, chers collègues, chers invités, je me réjouis tout d'abord de l'excellente initiative de l'Agence internationale de l'énergie sous le leadership du Dr Birol. Il nous voit aujourd'hui cette table ronde internationale consacrée aux impacts de la Covid-19 sur le secteur énergétique africain. Je voudrais à l'entame de mon propos vous transmettre les salutations cordiales de son Excellence M. Makhtar, président de la République du Sénégal, qui accorde une importance capitale à l'intégration énergétique au niveau du continent africain. Cette table ronde est l'occasion pour nous de faire une analyse croisée des conséquences notées sur le continent et de dresser les défis et opportunités engendrées par cette pandémie qui a fini de dérégler tout le système économique mondial. Nous vivons déjà des moments difficiles causés par cette pandémie qui va affecter durablement les économies de nos pays, surtout si nous ne parvenons pas à relever les défis liés au secteur énergétique moteur de la croissance. Et pour cela, nous devons saisir les opportunités qui s'offrent à nous pour transformer les contraintes et construire un système résilient capable de faire face à la crise. Les défis sont énormes, aussi bien dans le domaine de l'électricité que dans celui des hydrocarbures. Dans le domaine de l'électricité, nos pays sont confrontés à un problème de disponibilité, notamment en milieu rural, malgré les énormes potentialités de ressources énergétiques dont dispose l'Afrique, solaire, hydroélectricité, biomasse, éolien, gaz naturel. La crise mondiale liée à la Covid-19 risque d'aggraver cette situation et compromettre l'atteinte de l'objectif de développement durable numéro 7 fixé par la communauté internationale à l'horizon 2030 pour l'accès de tous à des services énergétiques fiables, durables, modernes et à un coût abordable. Ainsi, il est important de renforcer notre coopération et notre assistance mutuelle dans le cadre des pôles énergétiques régionaux, développer davantage les interconnexions entre nos pays. Certes, il est difficile pour le moment de déterminer avec exactitude tous les impacts qu'aura l'épidémie sur le secteur électrique. En revanche, certains aspects ou certains effets se font déjà sentir dans la diminution globale de la consommation pour le secteur productif de manière générale, même si celle du secteur résidentiel a légèrement augmenté avec notamment le recours au télétravail et à l'Internet. L'approvisionnement en électricité a été globalement assuré pour l'instant par nos sociétés d'électricité, même si c'est à des degrés divers. Toutefois, la menace continue de peser, surtout avec la crainte des reports d'investissement ou des retards potentiels dans la réalisation de certains projets majeurs d'infrastructures électriques, de production et de transport au niveau national ou régional. Les risques d'exécution peuvent ainsi découler des arrêts observés à cause des mesures de confinement et d'autre part des difficultés financières de certains investisseurs. Nous devons essayer de juguler au maximum ces impacts. Il nous faut donc investir davantage dans la production, les réseaux de transport et de distribution, mais également dans les énergies renouvelables, pour amener l'électricité dans nos hameaux les plus reculés, les centres et les postes de santé notamment. En effet, la pandémie a fini de révéler l'urgence, ou en tout cas de confirmer l'urgence de fournir de l'électricité aux centres ruraux pour la prise en charge des personnes infectées qui se trouvent dans des zones isolées hors de portée du réseau électrique, et cela grâce à l'énergie solaire. Concernant les défis à relever dans ce secteur, le premier est d'assurer donc l'accès universel à l'électricité des populations, notamment en milieu rural. Ensuite, nous devons continuer à sécuriser l'approvisionnement en électricité de nos pays en assurant un service énergétique de qualité et garantir surtout l'équilibre financier du secteur à court et moyen terme, tout en accompagnant la reprise à long terme des investissements déjà ciblés pour maintenir le pouvoir d'achat des ménages pour qu'ils puissent continuer à payer le service de l'électricité. Les initiatives de nos jeunes entrepreneurs devront être saluées et encouragées par tous les acteurs dans ce cadre. Madame la vice-secrétaire générale des Nations Unies, Monsieur le directeur exécutif, chers collègues, chers invités, le secteur des hydrocarbures n'est pas en marge de ces turbulences. Il est même l'un des plus touchés. En effet, la pandémie a contraint les États à prendre des mesures de confinement qui ont eu, entre autres, comme conséquence le ralentissement, voire un arrêt des travaux dans des pays où la plupart des équipements de production nécessaires aux projets pétroliers sont construits. Elle a également eu un impact significatif sur les marchés pétroliers, exacerbé par la guerre des prix, qui a fait que le prix du baril a suivi des évolutions jamais observées dans l'histoire du secteur pétrolier. Par ailleurs, il a été constaté une baisse importante de la consommation d'énergie à l'échelle mondiale qui a fortement ébranlé les marchés et impacté l'ensemble de la chaîne de valeur pétrolière et gazière. Cette baisse est directement liée aux différentes perturbations provoquées par la pandémie. Ces impacts ont eu des conséquences aussi bien au niveau des pays producteurs qu'au niveau des pays importateurs. Il urge donc, en guise de réponse, de partager les pratiques pour une bonne résilience du secteur des hydrocarbures, résoudre les problèmes structurels de la chaîne logistique pour assurer un bon stock de sécurité. Aussi, il importe d'assurer l'autosuffisance énergétique via les échanges intra-africains et d'élaborer un plan de financement robuste pour le secteur oil and gas, les raffineries, les terminaux d'importation et de stockage, les réseaux de transport et de distribution, en vue de la transition énergétique avec le bas carbone. C'est le cadre de la stratégie Gaz to Power ici au Sénégal. Enfin, il sera nécessaire de repenser la réglementation et la politique tarifaire dans le secteur des hydrocarbures pour favoriser l'accès et maintenir un climat ouvert à la discussion avec les compagnies pétrolières dans le but de favoriser une reprise rapide des activités à la fin de la crise. De façon générale, il est souhaitable que les États et gouvernements accompagnent les compagnies dans la recherche de solutions durables en vue de répondre à la crise économique liée au pétrole et ainsi éviter un impact irréversible sur les projets pétroliers et gaziers sur le continent. Dans nos discussions, nous aurons adressé toutes ces questions et bien d'autres que je n'ai pas pu énumérer ici. Je voudrais juste dire pour conclure que les investissements dans le secteur de l'énergie sont très lourds. Pour cela, nous avons besoin de l'engagement et de la détermination des investisseurs, aussi bien nationaux qu'internationaux, pour réussir le pari de l'accès universel à l'électricité qui a notre portée malgré les concours subis avec la pandémie. Nous avons également besoin de plus d'intégration régionale à travers les 5 pôles énergétiques africains pour harmoniser nos cadres réglementaires, renforcer le contenu local pour créer des emplois, des entreprises locales également capables de mener ces projets pour lutter contre le chômage des jeunes et endiguer ainsi les migrations vers l'Occident. À ce propos, il me plaît de rappeler que le chef de l'État du Sénégal, qui fait de l'unité et de l'intégration régionale une des valeurs fondamentales de sa pensée économique et politique, nous soutient dans tous ces projets. Nous devons donc interagir et nous soutenir mutuellement pour réaliser ensemble les investissements nécessaires pour développer l'énergie en Afrique. C'est comme cela que nous allons réussir la transition énergétique vers laquelle le monde est contraint et cela ne pourra se réaliser sans l'Afrique. Je vous remercie de votre aimable attention et me réjouis d'avance des échanges fructueux que nous aurons autour de cette table ronde. Voilà.
Merci, Mr. Cissé. Could all participants kindly switch on their screens now so we can take pictures throughout the event of you speaking? Thank you. Fatih, you have the floor, sir.
Dear ministers, friends, and colleagues, a very warm welcome to you all from Paris, from IEA headquarters. Mr. Minister, Minister Cissé, thank you very much, first of all, accepting my invitation to co-host this ministerial meeting on Africa. I am very pleased, extremely pleased, that so many ministers from Africa accepted the invitation of Minister Cissé and myself to attend this meeting. Many observers told in the last few days that this meeting, this virtual meeting, may well be the largest meeting on energy in Africa this year. I am thankful to all of you for attending this meeting. We understand that the ministers around this virtual table today, their countries make 2/3 of African energy consumption today. So it's a great honor for the IEA. So why did the IEA suggest such a meeting, organizing a meeting? We have two reasons. First, Africa and Africa-related energy developments are at the heart of IEA's interests. This is extremely important, and this should be well noted. The second, however, second reason, after the COVID, we follow all the energy issues around the world, and also in Africa, we see three very important challenges arising in Africa and in energy. And we couldn't just wait and see. We thought we should bring attention of the African and international leaders to these three major emerging challenges as a result of COVID. First, progress in energy access, especially electricity access, slowed down after the COVID considerably, especially off-grid developments are close to stopping now, which is very worrying because it was the driver of the electricity access in Africa. But this is the first reason COVID slowed down the electricity access progress substantially, number one. Number two, we follow all the investment trends around the world and also in Africa. After COVID, we see that the energy investment trends in Africa sees a big drop. It is for electricity, hydrocarbon, or transmission and distribution, for everything. This is the second reason why we were worried. And third, we all know that the global oil and gas markets are going through a major downturn. This created huge economic challenges for many of the African countries whose economies are substantially relying on oil and gas revenues. Major fiscal challenges, and in some cases, turning into social pressures. So these are the three reasons: slowing down of the electricity access, the decline of the, or slowing down of the progress in terms of energy investments, and thirdly, the vulnerable situation in many oil and gas countries in Africa. Now, what also breaks our heart at the IEA? At the IEA, we look at all the energy sources: solar, wind, gas, oil, hydropower, all of them. And Africa is one of the richest continents in the world, if not the richest in terms of resources. Let me give you one example. Monsieur Minister mentioned. In terms of solar energy, Africa receives 40% of global solar radiation, 40% of the world, and uses only 1% of the solar electricity generation capacity in the world. 40%, 1%. So this is the reason Africa is at the heart of the work of the IEA today. Another reason, looking at from a demographic perspective, our numbers show that in the next 20 years, 1 of every 2 people born in the world will be African. 1 of every 2 persons born in the world in the next 20 years is African, and the other one, every country, every continent put together. This is a major issue for Africa, but also for the rest of the world. Now, there are many issues. I am sure we will hear from the very able ministers across the continent, from North Africa, East, West, South, and but one issue, if I have to pick up, most important one, investment. Right investment and right government, bold government decisions to get the right investments. This is the main area that IEA is working on. Now, I would like to finish by saying two things. 1 year ago, this January, in Davos World Economic Forum, where I am the chair of the board of Energy Board, I told the participants, I am very optimistic about Africa's energy future because of at least 3 reasons. One, because of the cost of energy, solar, wind, hydropower, natural gas going down, making more affordable. Second, many governments
Oh Madonna, c'è il link della Todd,
this
mi sono
issue,
sbagliata.
as we see around this table, so many ministers are there. And third, young and dynamic population. And despite the COVID, I am determined that Africa's energy future will be bright because the dynamics, the fundamentals are very, very strong. Even the COVID cannot stop it. Finally, I think while the Africa's future will be determined by the Africans, there is a need for international coordination and support, and if I may say so, solidarity with Africa. 9th of July, very soon, IEA is organizing an international clean energy summit, having more than 40 ministers coming, and I am very happy that our co-chair, Mr. Cissé, will be there to report the results of this meeting to all the countries around the world and highlighting the key role of Africa. With this, I would like to thank Mr. Co-Chair once again for helping to bring so many ministers around the table, and thank all the participants, but especially, if I may, I would like to thank the Madam Deputy Secretary General of United Nations, Madam Amina Mohammed, as well as the Minister Mantashe, South African Minister, but at the same time, the President of the African Union this year, 2020. Thank you very much, and over to you, Mr. Minister.
Je vous remercie. Je voudrais vous remercier à mon tour et sans plus tarder donner la parole à nos 2 conférenciers d'honneur en leur demandant déjà d'allumer leur caméra. Il s'agit de Madame Amina Mohamed, secrétaire générale adjointe de l'Organisation des Nations Unies, ancienne ministre de l'Environnement du Nigeria, et qui cumule une très riche carrière engagée notamment dans le domaine du développement. Excellence, Madame Amina Mohamed, vous avez la parole.
Can you hear me? Yes, okay. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, let me start by thanking my brother, His Excellency Minister Cissé, and the Executive Director, Birol of the International Energy Agency for hosting this timely discussion. The COVID-19 pandemic has and continues to cause human suffering, destabilizing the global economy and upending lives of billions of people in unprecedented ways. As we strive to ease the impacts of the crisis, we must also plan now how to recover better. It is projected that foreign direct investment flows into African countries will decline between 25% and 40% in 2020 alone. The UN Economic Commission for Africa projects a 1.1% growth rate in 2020 in the best case scenario, and a contraction of 2.6% in the worst. Our common task of eradicating poverty and achieving the 2030 agenda has never been more urgent. At the same time, climate change continues to present monumental permanently life-altering changes. We cannot tackle these global crises separately. Excellencies, colleagues, access to clean, affordable, and modern energy services is critical for achieving the 2030 Agenda and for sustainable development in the Paris Agreement. Energy is also essential service for all aspects of the pandemic response, from powering health facilities and supplying clean water for hand washing to enabling services for socially distanced education. The eventual vaccine will need off-grid transboundary energy systems to be produced, stored, and distributed. These COVID-19 energy needs can accelerate progress on energy access in Africa, where 600 million people across the continent still lack reliable electricity. COVID response and recover better strategies can bridge this crippling access gap. Africa's energy needs will grow exponentially over the next coming decades. Massive population growth projections will require new and energy-intensive infrastructure and systems, housing, buildings, electricity grids. The African Development Bank estimates that Africa's infrastructure needs are between $130 and $170 billion a year. These factors present us with a phenomenal opportunity. Africa can lead the clean energy revolution and avoid the traditional high-polluting, expensive energy trajectory in emerging economies. Countries such as Kenya, Morocco, Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa, Egypt, Zambia, and Zimbabwe have demonstrated leadership in promoting investments in clean energy development through policy and regulatory reforms, and we need to see many more of these. In this context, I call on leaders present today to shape a climate-positive recovery in 6 key ways. First, delivering new jobs and businesses through a clean, green transition. With enabling policies, regulations, and incentives, Africa can become a global hub for green jobs, particularly for young people. Second, use fiscal firepower to protect vulnerable populations and ensure uninterrupted access to clean electricity. This requires treating both on-grid power companies and off-grid developers as essential industries in order to keep the lights on for all. Third, end fossil fuel subsidies and make polluters pay for their pollution. The current low prices for fossil fuels offers us historic opportunity to phase out fossil fuels, as we saw earlier this year in Nigeria. In most places, including Africa, renewables offer the least expensive option for power generation. The case for new coal power generation is both environmentally and economically unjustifiable. Africa needs to be on the right side of history. Fourth, pursue a just and fair transition that leaves no one behind, understanding that developing countries must also have the opportunity to carve the transition in the interest of the people and a sustainable environment. Fifth, incorporate climate risks and opportunities into the financial system, public policy making, and decisions on infrastructure. Sixth, raise ambition. The enhancement of nationally determined contributions, NDCs, before COP26 in 2021 provide a perfect opportunity to do this, creating investment opportunities for sustainable energy. The Secretary General will convene a high-level dialogue on sustainable energy just before COP26, and we hope to see innovative, measurable, and transformative results on clean energy for Africa before this important moment. Ladies and gentlemen, now is the time for energy leadership in Africa and across the globe. Let us work together in solidarity to build back better, stronger, more sustainable, and more resilient for our people and the planet. I thank you.
Je vous remercie, Excellence Madame Amina Mohamed, pour ce riche exposé. Je voudrais maintenant inviter le ministre des Ressources minérales et de l'Énergie de l'Afrique du Sud, pays qui assure la présidence de l'Union africaine, Son Excellence M. Samson Gede Mantashe. Excellence, vous avez la parole.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Co-Chairperson of the session, Senegal Minister of Petroleum and Energy, Mr. Mouhamadou, Cissé, IEA Executive Director, Dr. Fatih Birol, Your Excellencies, Ministers, Heads of Delegations, High Representatives, our partners from the private sector, delegates and participants, wish to congratulate the IEA and the Republic of Senegal for hosting this important roundtable discussion, drawing together a wide range of very strategic role players in the energy sector. We must also express our gratitude to the IEA ongoing expanding focus and cooperation with African continent. It is our honor and pleasure to participate in this Africa Ministerial Roundtable virtual discussion. This is in the middle of COVID-19 pandemic, which has disrupted the world. The economic decline is projected to be too high and throughout the world. For example, in our region, Sub-Saharan Africa is expected to register a recession for the first time in 20 years. This is a reality that forced us to appreciate that as we are hard at work trying to save lives, we must also adjust and adapt so that our program must also save livelihoods. That is a combination of saving lives and saving livelihoods, because sometimes we focus on one direction and leave the other direction. This in the middle, the decline in economic activity translated into the collapse of energy demand. Even in our case, when we insisted on allowing the energy sector to operate at full capacity during the lockdown that was imposed on us, demand collapsed to a point where refineries were forced to close. When we relaxed the lockdown, the demand grew faster, leading to shortage of energy products when the economic sector were ramping up production. The tension between the US and China are not helpful as they impact heavily on developing economies. One advantage that COVID-19 created was for the developing economies to reimagine their future. There is more talk of developing domestic manufacturing capacity. The starting point is the manufacturing of the much needed protective products, your mask, your sanitizers, and develop the production capacity, even export surplus. African countries can cooperate in these projects and work together. There is general agreement that energy can be the flywheel of the economic recovery. This is not a gift, but will depend on the energy sector positioning itself for such a role. We should assume that role. The polemic fight among energy technologies is weakening the sector. Energy must start working as an important sector of the economy rather than competition of energy technologies. The transition to low carbon emissions must be handled with the necessary care to avoid hurting each other in the process. An opportunity for this sector are huge and wait to be exploited. As we transition to low carbon emission economy, as developing economies, we are expecting that developed economies will acknowledge our effort and support us. And the biggest challenge is for our people accessing low cost energy. As we talk about technologies in Africa, the biggest challenge is access to energy. If we fail to resolve the challenge of access to clean energy, will look more like a luxury. The commitments made in the Paris Agreement must be honored. This requires a lot of support from developed economies. Our level of development must be appreciated for the world to give meaning to just transition. Just must take into account the development level of these African countries. Other some economies and employment prospects will be otherwise. Some economies and employment prospects will be destroyed. We are looking forward to the next roundtable, possible physically. We must all participate, be it virtual or physical, so that we can share our experiences and work together all the way. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Excellence. vous féliciter pour la qualité de vos deux interventions, Madame Amina Mohamed et vous-même, et vous remercier surtout d'avoir honoré de votre présence cette conférence internationale. Je voudrais maintenant introduire, avec votre permission, Dr Birol, avec qui je co-préside, un des présentateurs qui nous vient du Fonds monétaire international. Il est le directeur du département Afrique. Monsieur Selassie, vous avez la parole.
Merci, Monsieur le Minister. Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to give this address. I will make my brief interventions around two main axes. First is around, of course, the impact of COVID-19, the wretched impact that it's having on our economies, and the extraordinary challenges that are facing the region's energy-producing, oil-exporting countries in particular. Although the pandemic started much later in general to other parts of the world, what we are seeing is that it's playing out and rolling out across the region in a very different way, but in a manner which suggests that what has happened elsewhere around the world could yet happen in the region, and indeed is happening in some parts of the region. So as our economies are opening up and trying to look beyond the pandemic, really is important for us to stress that while the caseloads remain low, we have yet to see the full effects of the pandemic in the region, and the call for vigilance and redoubling efforts to contain it are as strong as ever. The economic toll of the pandemic, both through lockdowns and external shocks, will have a staggering effect on African economies. For the continent, our forecast shows that real GDP in 2020 will contract by around 3.8%. I beg your pardon, will swing from 3.8% last year to a contraction of minus 2.8%. This is for the continent as a whole. For African oil exporting countries, the 8 sub-Saharan African oil exporters plus Algeria and Libya, the revision downwards is more still, of course, from 2.5% growth last year to minus 5% contraction in their economies this year. The human toll, particularly in the region's commodity exporting countries, will be really steep. We're expecting per capita growth for the continent as a whole to contract by 5%, and for the energy exporting countries by around 7.5%. More tangibly, perhaps, for our governments, the crisis will put government budgets under tremendous strain, with an estimated total loss in fiscal revenues of the order of $92 billion this year, a decline by around a quarter compared to what was expected last year. This, of course, will strain public accounts severely, including by pushing up public debt burdens quite significantly upwards. In all of this, I want to stress a couple of the points that preceding speakers have pointed. Notwithstanding the constraints that our countries are facing on the fiscal side, on the financing side, there is no solution other than to spend whatever it takes to protect health and livelihoods at the moment. Absent that, we will not be able to move beyond the pandemic. So the policy advice in the near term, until we have this pandemic contained, remains to protect lives and livelihoods as much as possible. Second point I would like to stress in my intervention is how pivotal a moment this is for our continent. With a less favorable external environment in prospect, it will be very important to rethink our development strategies. In recent years, many countries in our continent have been relying on public investment-driven growth. This cannot continue absent significant changes in the social contract to generate more domestic resources, particularly tax revenues by governments. More broadly, the moment offers an opportunity to consider policy priorities. An important issue, as the COVID pandemic has shown, will be the importance of strengthening resilience, rethinking social safety nets, facilitating digitalization, adapting to climate change. And these new themes will need to be pursued aggressively alongside existing reform agenda, the elimination of policy-induced distortions, excessive subsidies for dirty energy, sustaining investment in human capital, and facilitating stronger private sector development. Absent this, our countries will not be enjoying the much stronger growth that we will need to both to recoup the adverse effects that the pandemic has had on our countries, as well as engender the job-rich environment we need to absorb all of the new labor market participants in the coming years. I thank you.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur Selassie. Je rappelle que vous êtes le directeur du département Afrique du Fonds monétaire international. Il m'a été signalé que vous devez quitter la session avant la fin. Donc, je voudrais profiter de votre présence et avant de passer la parole au docteur Birol, vous dire que dans cette économie post-Covid qui s'annonce, le Fonds monétaire a un rôle important à jouer pour les pays africains. Et si nous n'avons pas le courage de vous accompagner, ou en tout cas de vous donner le courage de revisiter un certain nombre de principes et de règles pour les adapter, il sera extrêmement difficile pour l'Afrique de s'en sortir. Il nous faut restaurer nos capacités budgétaires et donc traiter de façon intelligente et courageuse le problème de la dette. Ça, c'est fondamental. Et réfléchir sur les flexibilités qu'on devrait avoir dans les dépenses liées aux accès universels. L'accès universel à l'eau, à l'éducation et à l'électricité notamment, qui nous préoccupent aujourd'hui. Si l'Afrique n'a pas de marge dans ses axes pour faire des dépenses d'investissement, pour consacrer ces accès universels, notamment l'accès à l'énergie, il sera extrêmement difficile d'enclencher la croissance post-Covid. Donc, ce débat, il est déjà posé. Notre président de la République, M. Macky Sall, est à la tête d'une initiative avec ses collègues africains sur l'annulation de la dette, notamment. Et donc, sans entrer dans ce débat, je voudrais juste le souligner et attirer votre attention et en tout cas vous suggérer de réfléchir avec nous de façon courageuse à trouver des solutions pour restaurer nos capacités budgétaires sans mettre en péril certains équilibres fondamentaux. Ça me paraît extrêmement nécessaire. Et la piste, c'est d'avoir de la flexibilité sur les dépenses liées aux accès. Je voudrais vous remercier et passer maintenant la parole au docteur Birol, avec qui je co-préside, pour modérer la première session sur les impacts sur le secteur de l'électricité en Afrique. Docteur Birol, vous avez la parole.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, dear colleagues. So we said we have two major challenges when it comes to energy in the context of COVID, but beyond. One is the electricity access. Many countries, sub-Saharan African countries, but also North African countries, suffer under not having enough people having access to electricity. And the second is the current situation of the vulnerable oil and gas exporters in the region, in the continent. The second part, oil and gas session, will be run by Minister Cissé. And I would like to discuss with the several excellent ministers from the continent the issue of electricity access. First of all, I would like to start with the first 3 minutes to a very important country in north of Africa, which is Egypt. Minister Al-Markabi is with us. Mr. Minister, we are very much looking forward to hear your views from Egypt's perspective. How do you see the electricity issue in Egypt and beyond in the continent? Thank you very much, Mr. Minister.
Hello, thank you. Do you hear me now? Or
perfect.
Are you hearing me?
Perfect.
Yes, okay.
Very well. Thank you.
All right. Excellencies, distinguished guests. Let me talk about Egypt, actually what's happened in Egypt during this crisis as a case study. The electricity sector in Egypt has been affected by the lockdown measures. Full lockdown measures have reduced electricity demand by at least 12% in general than anticipated. The services sector has been hit hardest by the lockdown measures, and the most affected was the tourism. However, the industry sector on average hasn't been affected strongly, as many factories have been able to continue operation by applying precautionary measures to protect workers. The demand declined by only 9%, while the residential electricity demand increased as a result of lockdown measures, as most people are spending more time at home because of this. The electricity sector in Egypt has taken different measures to ensure the security of supply during the pandemic by managing working staff according to the public health measures. Actually, as a matter of fact, the security of electricity supply in Egypt, as well as ensuring reliability, has been on the top priorities of the government agenda, not only during the crisis, but this started almost 6 years ago. We were facing a big problem by a shortage of power supply reaching 15 to 20% daily. But we could manage during 6 years only to include in the network about 25 gigawatt, which allow us to have a spare capacity of 25%. In the same time, we've been moving to improving the transmission and distribution network in order to improve the security of supply, including extra high voltage substations, the distribution, and all these things. Now we can easily, just to give you an idea about how much we did during this last 6 years, we increased the capacity of the substation transformers in the country by 4 times. And in the same time, we increased the length of transmission line for that. In fact, we are having now a spare capacity of at least 25%. We in Egypt are putting as a first priority investment actually in the renewable energy, where we depend on the private sector to a great extent through feed-in tariffs and an auction project. The energy strategy has targeted to reach 20% of renewables by the year 2022. Just to give you an idea about what we reached so far, we have now installed capacity of 5,800 megawatt, and this will be increased to over 6,700 megawatt by the end of this year. With this approximately contribute to almost 20% of the peak load required. Among the action taken by the government to support transition to green energy, we had actually in our plan to build a coal-fired power plant, but we canceled this completely. At the end, I know the time is very limited, so I'm just trying to finalize my remarks by adding that I would like also to underline the importance of involving the young generation and youth in this transition through supporting energy entrepreneurs. We have over 200 companies led by young professionals which are working for the distribution sector and PV rooftop installation. Thank you very much for the time you allow me to give this very short remark. Thank you.
Mr. Minister, please don't go. It is a very good presentation of the Egyptian electricity market you are in, the context. I have one question, Mr. Minister. If I am not wrong, some time ago, your government has a very ambitious target in terms of renewables, and it is lots of renewables potential available, of course, in your country. To have the, if I am not wrong, it was 42% of total electricity generation 2035. Are you sure that you will be able to make it, Mr. Minister?
Yes, we are very determined to reach this, and even we are doing some extra studies and reviewing our strategy to see how we, if it's impossible to increase this, not only 42%, but to reach up till 46%. We're working hard on this. We are moving fast. Currently, we are discussing to build a pump and storage station as well in order to complement this with the renewables. I believe we'll be able, because we started this major transition in Egypt, as I said, 6 years or 5 years ago, and we are moving according to the planned schedule exactly.
Thank you very much. Shukran Jazira, Mr. Minister, very much appreciated. Now, let me move to another very important country in the region, both in terms of energy, but also in terms of population, economy, and others, another giant, which is Nigeria. Mr. Minister, it is great to have you with us today. Can we hear your perspective, Mr. Minister? The perspective of Nigeria, please. We are so fortunate today to have so many Nigerian colleagues with us, yourself, Mr. Minister, OPEC Secretary General, and of course, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. And I just saw Damilelo also joining us. Mr. Minister, the floor is yours, please. Mr. Minister, we can hear you. Please go ahead. Mr. Minister, please go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, please go.
Yeah. I can hardly hear you. Can I go ahead now?
Yes, please. Yes, sir.
Okay. Hi, everybody. It's good to be here with you on this program. I have enjoyed listening to the last two speakers, and I hope you can hear me clearly. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, very, very well. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Am I supposed to be speaking? I'm supposed to be speaking at 1:30. Is it time for me to go ahead?
Yes, please. Yes, sir. We can hear you, but we cannot see you exactly. So
You cannot see me exactly. Oh my God.
Perfect. This is just perfect. Wonderful.
Can you see
Please.
me now? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Let me adjust my camera. Can you see me now?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. No, I'm speaking already. So the pandemic has been a problem to all the entire world, where problems supplies in terms of energy distribution and even transmission. However, the energy sector in Nigeria has some setbacks due to this pandemic problem. In the interim, during the lockdown, in the past 12 weeks of lockdown, we've had to work skeletally. But what government here did, we as a government, we said that put it on emergency service. So most of our staff in the power sector came to work. Even though this supply was available and distribution, most of the industries were shut down. So we could supply on homes, but the factories and workplaces wouldn't have power because they were shut down. That in effect also affected medical facilities, and our medical facilities for agriculture, industry, and infrastructure. In any case, most of the supplies to our hospitals and the COVID resettlement centers were not affected because we provided off-grid light, off-grid energy. We provided power by solar. All the hospitals and reception centers were powered. The RE agency provided pass to electricity workers to be able to come to work. So the agency provided power to the centers where people were treated. We gave them free power and made sure that there was sufficient energy to carry on the system, at least to a large extent. To that extent, the government is trying. And recently, government has approved new measures to build more in the centers, at the centers to supply energy to all of them, with a view to solar power to all of them, with a view to sustaining the treatments and the facilities. So there's a new directive or provision in a new budget, extra budgetary provision for that purpose at the moment. And the Nigerian government does not does not take it lightly, because we know the figures are rising, especially in Nigeria. We've had the figures rising of late. It's of great concern to us. We believe that more action should be taken, which we are trying to do as a government in terms of energy supply to the hospitals and health facilities for our people. Essentially, it looks like government is prepared, even though it took us by surprise. This took the whole world by surprise, but we are combating it effectively. And we know that Nigeria, our numbers, our figures are increasing, but the death toll number, the figures of infected people are increasing, but the death number of deaths are decreasing. They're not as high as that of what we anticipated, which is a good news in itself. We hope to work harder towards bringing down the figures, and with energy supply and the hospitals and facilities, we know that much is being done and much will be achieved from that perspective. Are there questions I need to answer now?
Yes, Mr. Minister, I have one quick question to you.
Yes.
You had a target, your government put a very important target, reaching 90% electricity access in 2030, which is a very encouraging target for Nigeria, for Africa, and for all of us. You think you are on track to reach that very ambitious but very important target, Mr. Minister?
Yes, government has a target of reaching 90% of power by 2030. We're ambitious towards reaching that. We have recently entered the agreement with the German company, Siemens, to do that. And Siemens is mobilized on site. Money has been provided, and we hope that will be done. The project in Mambila is coming on stream too. So if we can get Mambila and Kashimbila, and then Siemens producing that amount of energy, we hope we'll reach and even over. We're also encouraging the private sector to participate in solar power systems, and also off-grid provisions for the non-rural communities. If we get that done with Siemens and the off-grid programs, we expect and hope that we'll reach and even overpass that 90%, which we project to reach. Much money has been released to that effect, and as I speak presently, Siemens are on ground, and we've started the projects. Like the Mambila project to produce more power to supplement the existing structures. And the Mambila project itself is very big. The Mambila project will generate a lot of energy, as well as Kashimbila. So if those two projects are done, and then the off-grid program for solar power provision gets on stream, we hope to be able to make it and surpass it by 2030.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. This is a very encouraging information. Hope to see 90%, even higher access in Nigeria very soon. Now, I moved to another very important country in North Africa, to Morocco, which made major achievements in the last few years in terms of energy access, renewable energy, and others. Minister Rabah, it is very nice to see you again. It's a great pleasure to see you again, Mr. Minister. I leave the floor to you, Mr. Minister. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup pour cette invitation. Et d'ailleurs un grand merci pour mon ami le ministre sénégalais, bien sûr mon ami Birol pour cet bel événement. Nous avons besoin de cet événement pour qu'on puisse échanger sur l'énergie d'une manière globale, l'électricité en particulier, et plus particulièrement dans cette période très difficile. Très rapidement, parce qu'on n'a pas beaucoup de temps, concernant l'impact donc du Covid, je peux dire qu'il y a des impacts, disons, négatifs, mais quand même, nous avons pu donc pallier à ça. Premièrement, il y a une baisse de consommation pendant cette période jusqu'à 14%. Et bien sûr, on n'a pas pu encaisser les factures jusqu'à 11 millions de factures qui ne sont pas encaissées parce que nous avons instauré pas mal de facilités pour la population et on a décidé bien sûr d'échelonner ça dans les mois à venir. C'est une façon d'accompagner la population. Mais quand même, je dois citer quelques points positifs. Le premier, c'est qu'il n'y a aucune interruption du système parce que, comme vous le saviez bien sûr, nous avons atteint plus de 99% de l'électrification à l'échelle nationale. Il nous reste quelques endroits que nous avons recensés. Nous sommes en train de réaliser quelques projets en la matière. Nous avons bien sûr, disons, mis en place un stock de sécurité pour qu'on puisse faire face aux aléas de ce virus, pour qu'on puisse continuer bien sûr à produire de l'électricité, plus particulièrement concernant le charbon. Les projets en cours et plus particulièrement les projets concernant les énergies renouvelables continuent à être implémentés dans les différentes zones à l'échelle nationale. Nous avons mis en place un système de maintenance intelligent tout en prenant donc les mesures de précaution, parce qu'il faut maintenir les centrales, maintenir les réseaux, maintenir les systèmes de distribution. Et bien sûr, nous avons mis en place une garantie de l'État pour l'Office de l'électricité pour qu'il puisse continuer à payer donc, les entreprises partenaires. Donc, on avait besoin de cette garantie parce que nous avons besoin d'accompagner les entreprises, donc ces dizaines, sinon des centaines d'entreprises qui constituent l'écosystème de notre système énergétique. Et donc, nous avons mis en place un système de garantie pour qu'on puisse continuer à honorer nos engagements envers ces différentes entreprises. Et pendant cette période, bien sûr, nous n'avons pas baissé les bras parce que nous avons continué à travailler. Donc, premièrement, nous avons accéléré notre processus d'élaboration de notre projet sur le gaz, sur le GNL. Et donc, on est dans les dernières étapes pour qu'on puisse, étape d'élaboration de notre plan 2030 avec des prévisions 2040 concernant le gaz naturel. Bien sûr, nous sommes sur les dernières étapes pour notre feuille de route concernant l'hydrogène. Donc, nous considérons que c'est des énergies qui vont s'imposer dans les années à venir. Et donc, nous travaillons bien sûr avec l'AIE, avec pas mal de partenaires. Nous avons considéré donc cette évolution à l'échelle internationale, en particulier au niveau européen. Nous avons remarqué qu'ils, dans leur programme, disons leur plan Green Deal, cette question de taxe carbone va s'imposer dans les années à venir. Donc, nous prenons en considération cette question de taxe carbone. Donc, nous accompagnons le tissu productif, en particulier industriel, pour qu'il puisse switcher totalement vers l'énergie propre. L'industrie marocaine doit être compétitive, donc le coût de l'énergie doit baisser, mais en même temps doit être propre dans le processus de production. Donc, nous sommes en train de travailler avec le ministère de l'Industrie pour qu'on puisse rapidement offrir l'énergie propre, mais dans des meilleurs délais. Donc, c'est un grand challenge après Covid auquel il faut faire face. Nous sommes en train de remarquer que l'autoproduction va prendre de plus en plus de l'importance, l'autoproduction. Donc, les industriels veulent produire leur propre énergie et donc nous sommes en train de mettre en place le cadre réglementaire, mais aussi le cadre d'accompagnement pour que le tissu productif passe à l'autoproduction. Et sincèrement, il faut qu'on se prépare à l'échelle africaine, mais même à l'échelle mondiale, à un chamboulement du système électrique. Donc, comment peut-on garder l'équilibre des sociétés nationales, comme l'Office national de l'électricité, et donner la possibilité aux industriels de produire leur propre énergie, qu'elle soit propre. Donc, c'est vraiment un grand challenge que nous sommes en train d'étudier, d'examiner à l'échelle nationale. Pendant cette période et après, nous avons accentué donc le dialogue avec les partenaires, en particulier nos frères et nos amis africains, avec par exemple l'Éthiopie, avec d'autres pays. Nous sommes en train de travailler pour qu'on puisse créer des joint ventures, pour qu'on puisse répondre à la demande africaine. Donc c'est une grande demande, mais nous voulons développer une solution africaine qui doit être appropriée au contexte africain. Nous avons bien sûr accentué le dialogue avec l'Union européenne, parce que le Green Deal va impacter l'économie mondiale, va impacter l'économie européenne. C'est notre premier client et notre premier fournisseur. Et nous sommes en train de travailler avec les pays européens pour qu'on puisse donc, plus la connexion, nous voulons créer des joint ventures entre les acteurs européens et les acteurs marocains. Bien sûr, nous sommes en train de travailler et mettre en place tous les ingrédients pour que le Maroc soit transformé au hub régional pour l'énergie mondiale. Et nous suivons de près votre réflexion sur cette question de sécurisation des systèmes logistiques de l'énergie mondiale. Et donc, nous sommes en train de mettre en place le climat favorable pour transformer notre pays en hub régional d'électricité, gaz, hydrogène, l'industrie des énergies, ainsi de suite. Finalement pour l'Afrique, je crois que la question de l'énergie, c'est une question qui est très critique, très critique. En plus des tensions qui vont être créées par l'après-Covid, parce qu'il y aura plus de chômage, il y aura plus d'arrêt de certaines activités économiques qu'il faut, à mon avis, prendre en considération. Question de l'accès à l'énergie et l'électricité, c'est une question sociale, c'est une demande donc des citoyens, de la population, c'est une question économique par la nouvelle économie africaine qui va être après le Covid, Covid-19. Je crois que l'économie africaine va nécessiter plus d'énergie et énergie propre. Et troisièmement, c'est une question de sécurité. Donc, c'est une question de sécurité dans les pays africains et on a besoin de maîtriser les tensions sociales autour de toutes si vous voulez, les impacts de Covid, mais plus particulièrement l'accès à l'eau et l'accès à l'énergie et plus particulièrement l'accès à l'électricité. Merci.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, for this comprehensive expose on Africa, Morocco, your country, but also put in the context with the European Green Deal. Very much appreciated. Now, may I move to another important country in sub-Saharan Africa, Namibia. We have the Minister of Mines and Energy, His Excellency, Mr. Tom Alvindo. Mr. Minister, the floor is yours for the next 3 minutes, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You can hear me, right?
We hear you very well, sir.
Thank you very much. Let me also thank the organizers, the IAEA, of course, and then the Minister of Energy from Senegal for arranging this very, very important discussion. I think the COVID-19. And yes, I think it's like all of us are challenged, whether you are a developing country or developed country, we all are challenged by this pandemic. We're really globally, we are all, made to make decisions that are, to save the economies, but also at the same time to save their lives. Very, very difficult challenges, of course, indeed. And obviously, electricity is impacted. And it's also so happened that, at the time when really the African continent was working very hard and the momentum was being gained in terms of providing electricity on the continent. There are a number of initiatives, some the African Union own initiative like the RA, the African Renewable Energy Initiative, for example. We're cooperating with some other partners like the Power Africa. So it was really, we have built up a momentum where you really on the way to make sure that this Africa has got the power it needs. Now, where we are, obviously, as I have heard from the speakers who spoke before me, the demand for electricity has declined. In our case, for example, the demand has declined by 12% during the time of the COVID. and that will probably then make some investors who who decided to invest in the generation of electricity, that might then make them to try to rethink the investment proposal. But I'm confident that because of the need we have on the continent, the pent-up demand for electricity, I am convinced that even with the reduction in the demand that we have, that should probably not really be a disincentive, I think, for more investment to take place in the generating of electricity. So I'm hopeful that that will continue. But for that also then to happen, it will just means then that we as policymakers, as government, and the private sector, the investors, we need to ready to start to collaborate and figure out some of the COVID-19 induced challenges that might make some of the proposed investment not viable anymore. Probably to sit around the table and say, how can we still make that viable? But as I say, given the pent-up demand we have on the continent, that should still be possible. Of course, we all talk about is the access we talk about, where we, for example, in Namibia, we have got a Vision 2030, whereby by 2030, we want to have universal access. But apart from the access, we also need to start talking about the affordability. It's one thing to have access to electricity. It's another to be able to actually to have the consumer to afford that electricity. So the two things go hand in hand. But certainly, I think Africa is probably still in a space where we can attract more investment in electricity, especially if we embrace private sector investment. There was a time probably we tried to rely heavily on government investing in the electricity. For example, in most countries, we all have got our national utility companies that actually do the generation and the distribution. In Namibia, for example, we have reformed the system whereby we are embracing more and more private investment, where we've got the number of IPP already providing 20% of our electricity and not relying only on the national utilities. We have also reformed the system whereby, as opposed to before, where every generations have to be bought up by the utilities, now IPPs can also sell directly to customers. And that I think that will encourage investment, I think, in the sector. So for those who would still wish to have a discussion with us in terms of how private sector investment can take place in this sector, obviously we are quite available. But again, let me just say thank you very much for organizing this discussion. It's quite important.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, for joining this event and highlighting both the challenges in terms of drop in demand, but also your ambitions. I know that one of the preoccupations of your country is reduce the imports and give a boost to domestic production, including renewables. We will be very happy to support your government as well, Mr. Minister, for this very important reaching this target. Now, we are so happy to have so many ministers from Africa, one after another. But if I may, I want to make a small pause and move to Europe and then come back to Africa. And now I would like to suggest the UK, going back to United Kingdom, Sir Simon McDonald, who is the permanent Undersecretary and head of the diplomatic service in UK Foreign Service. I cannot see him now, but I can tell you that he's one of the diplomats I have seen who has such a big heart for developing countries and Africa. Sir Simon, okay, I can see him. Sir Simon, the floor is yours, and it's a great pleasure to see you again, Sir Simon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Fatih. Thank you, Dr. Birol and the IEA for leading the energy sector's response to COVID-19. We also welcome Senegal's leadership and ambitions and ambitious targets in clean energy. The UK and Senegal are working together. The British wind farm company Lekela is helping Senegal reach its 30% target for renewable energy ahead of its 2025 target date. The electricity sector, as many speakers have said, in Africa has always faced challenges. Nearly 550 million people do not have access to electricity, and 890 million people have no access to clean cooking fuels. But Africa is making progress. I saw this for myself at the vast Noor solar plants in Morocco. There is ingenuity. We admire the pay-as-you-go for off-grid solar power. And there is progress on electrification. Ghana and South Africa are now in excess of 80%. Into this promising scene, COVID-19 was clearly a great blow. But this pandemic also provides opportunities. If we invest in clean energy now, we can deliver sustainable global recovery, boosting economic growth, creating millions of jobs, and driving down greenhouse gas emissions. As Dr. Birol said at the beginning, Africa has the richest solar resources on the planet, but so far has installed only 5 gigawatts of solar photovoltaic panels, accounting for less than 1% of global capacity. In this endeavor, the United Kingdom is a willing partner. Already this year in January, we organized the UK-Africa Investment Summit in London. And looking ahead to next year, with Italy, the United Kingdom will host COP26. For us, this will be the biggest international event of 2021. Our objective there is simple: to ensure clean power is the most attractive option for African countries, eliminating the need for planned coal plants. Green growth is the best growth. For our children, green growth is the only acceptable growth. Now is the time. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sir Simon, for this very precise but to the point remarks. Let me take this opportunity to thank you very much for your support for the IEA, for our work with the developing countries, and your direct support to many developing countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Very much appreciated, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, from UK, may I go to another European country, almost a neighbor, if I may say so, to Netherlands. And we are very happy to have the Vice Minister of International Cooperation, Mrs. Kitty van der Heijden. And I would like to also thank Netherlands for having a global view when it comes to energy and development issues, Madam Minister. Very much looking forward to hear your remarks. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Dr. Birol. It's nice to be among good friends, and Minister Makhtar, Cissé, Excellencies, friends. This is a pretty unique crisis. I think many have said this before me. It's the most adverse peacetime shock that we have had in a century of our global economy, and one that challenges not just the energy sector, but also underlines the crucial role, I would say, of electricity. And as the Netherlands, we obviously recognize the need for all of us to support our economies, including some of the electricity companies, to get through the crisis, whether that is central utilities or decentralized players like the pay-as-you-go solar companies. And for example, we're making funds available for solar energy for health centers in rural areas in Senegal to make sure that we address both the energy crisis as well as the COVID-19 health impacts. We recognize, like all of you, the huge impact and potential to install hundreds of gigawatts of clean renewable power in Africa. Generating significant investments and business opportunities are crucial to boost growth and to provide jobs, but no less important, renewable energy solutions provide clean, reliable, easy to mobilize, and very cost-effective energy for essential services, like healthcare, like water, like food supply. This makes them crucial to the immediate response plans to COVID-19 as well. And I don't think there's any other industry but the energy sector that can match that type of impact while simultaneously reducing CO2 emissions. The minister from Namibia stressed the importance of the private sector, and I would like to fully subscribe to that. We work mostly through public-private partnerships, for example, by contributing directly, but also leveraging and helping to attract private sector investment in the earliest stages of the Lake Turkana wind power park in Kenya, which now provides access to about 1 million Kenyan households with clean energy. I'd like to pick up on the previous speaker also to underscore the important point that economic recovery must be green recovery. We need to recognize that every decision we take today on how we use those recovery funds will have long-term implications for the future. And here I'd like to congratulate the International Energy Agency's report and their stress that the current COVID-19 crisis actually raises huge long-term questions. And from my perspective, I would rather see them as opportunities for a different future, a future we all want. Could we build an energy sector that is more resilient to economic shocks, one that is better and greener, one that creates new jobs, one that is more inclusive, that also services the hundreds of millions of people that are still without electricity and that don't have clean cooking solutions? Now, to build back better and to build back greener, we feel that we need to be bold, we need to be ambitious, we need to listen to evidence, we need to understand and properly value the economic rationale of going green. We need to look at elements of a just transition, share the best practices, and work together more than we ever did before. Now we have an SDG 7 agenda that gives us the direction, a three-pronged approach of universal access, renewable energy, and energy efficiency. We'd like to stress the importance of engaging women and youth in this agenda. And again, fully subscribe to the Sustainable Recovery Plan of the agency. We're very keen to make sure that finance lands where it's needed. And from our perspective as the co-chair of the NDC partnership, we stand ready to support countries worldwide for more ambitious climate change plans in line with the Paris Agreement. My last point, Dr. Birol, is that obviously we have an SDG 7 agenda. It's quite clear what the point on the horizon is. We know that we have to leapfrog to a different future. And I just wanted to leave with you the wisdom, not just of the SDG 7 and its rationale, but also the wise words of Michelangelo as we chart the way out of a very difficult crisis we're in to a greener future. And that is that the greater danger for most of us lies not in setting our aim too high, and yes, it's going to be difficult to go green. It lies not in setting our aim too high and falling short, but rather in setting our aim too low and achieving our mark. If we would do that, we would be failing the future generations and we would be failing the poor in Africa. So let's be ambitious, let's go green, let's do it fast in a just way. Thank you very much, Dr. Birol. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister, for this excellent introduction, your remarks. Much appreciated, but also your government's stance on the development and sustainable development, very consistent across the world, very much appreciated. And you mentioned, you brought very nicely Michelangelo in the discussion. Thank you very much for that. And I would like to bring a Dutch man whom I admire, not Michelangelo, but a Dutchman, Johan Cruyff. Johan Cruyff said, keep the eye on the ball in a game. If you want to win the game, keep the eye on the ball. And here is I think the ball is sustainable development, sustainable growth, and therefore I would like to congratulate Netherlands, both globally, but also in Europe, being one of the leading countries for a sustainable recovery. Thank you very much, Madam Minister. So may I now turn back to Sub-Saharan Africa and my good friend, the Minister of Energy of Benin. I don't know if he is hearing me, Jean-Claude Husso. Monsieur le Ministre, vous êtes là? Oui.
Oui, je vous entends parfaitement.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur. Merci. Vas-y, monsieur.
Allô, allô, vous m'entendez? Allô?
Parfait, monsieur.
D'accord. Bonjour, monsieur le directeur exécutif. Bonjour à tous. Je tiens tout d'abord à vous remercier, toute l'équipe, toute votre équipe, pour l'organisation donc de cette visioconférence dans cette période difficile que nous traversons. Et particulièrement, je remercie le docteur Birol pour l'attention qu'il porte au Bénin à travers donc cette invitation que nous avions eue. Ce que je peux déjà dire en quelques points de la façon dont nous avons abordé cette situation de pandémie Covid-19, c'est qu'il y a un certain nombre de mesures qui ont été prises. Évidemment, il y a les mesures barrières partagées par tout le monde, mais il y a aussi au niveau des entités qui sont sous tutelle du ministère un certain nombre de mesures particulières. Et si je prends la Société nationale de distribution, la SBE, il y a un certain nombre d'actions et d'organisations qui ont été spécialement mises en place dans cette période difficile, notamment du télétravail, la mise en congé d'un certain nombre d'agents qui ne soient pas immédiatement disponibles, la rotation de personnel, etc. Donc, des mesures appropriées par rapport aux circonstances. Ce qu'il faut noter, c'est que nous avons un certain nombre d'impacts. C'est pour ça que je salue cette initiative et le thème de cette réunion d'aujourd'hui, c'est que nous avons des impacts notamment au niveau du ralentissement de la mise en œuvre d'un certain nombre de projets que nous avons initiés dans le cadre du programme d'action du gouvernement. Donc, concrètement, il y a la baisse des activités, la baisse des travaux parce que les acteurs qui le font ne sont plus disponibles parce qu'à l'étranger et qu'ils ne peuvent pas voyager, etc. Et surtout que dans la gestion de la pandémie, le gouvernement avait mis en place un cordon sanitaire entre la partie la plus peuplée du pays et le reste, ce qui fait que les mouvements n'étaient pas favorables non plus. Nous avons également tout ce qui est études qui ont pris en fait un coup en termes d'exécution. Ce qu'il faut noter également, c'est que le nombre de branchements, par exemple pour la société de distribution, a baissé considérablement dans ces périodes-là parce que ceux qui le font sont en contact direct avec la population et qu'il fallait les protéger. On a eu des interruptions également de coupures pour non-paiement et surtout des actions liées au hors-réseau qui sont importantes, qui ont été arrêtées ou ralenties et qui nécessitent particulièrement un appui important au niveau des partenaires techniques et financiers à travers ça. Et donc, au-delà de tout ça, nous avons noté un impact important sur le côté déroulement des projets et donc sur la gestion budgétaire également, qui nécessite une attention particulière si on veut une croissance durable, car nous n'ignorons pas que la disponibilité de l'énergie électrique est source donc de tout développement socio-économique. Le gouvernement a également mis en place, face à tout ça, un certain nombre de mesures d'atténuation des impacts pour le secteur électrique, notamment le paiement, la prise en charge par l'État de la hausse tarifaire qui était initialement prévue, donc dans cette période-là, est décalée dans le temps, de manière à ce que la société distributrice ne soit pas donc en manque par rapport à cette action, et aussi le paiement par l'État de 3 mois de facture pour les petites et moyennes entreprises pour leur permettre donc de faciliter sur la période. Quelques chiffres clés à noter. Entre le mois d'avril et le mois de mai, nous avons constaté une diminution des recettes entre 20 et 25% pour la société de distribution. Le niveau des demandes d'énergie électrique a baissé autour de 4%. Et je confirme encore que l'ensemble des projets majeurs que nous menons ont fait face à des ralentissements dus aux différents points que j'ai évoqués plus tôt. Merci encore à vous et je pense que pour gagner cette bataille, il faut absolument que nous contribuions ensemble à travers des réseaux de ce type pour travailler ensemble et pour que des appuis financiers nécessaires puissent contribuer au développement durable du secteur de l'électricité, pour ne pas parler du secteur de l'énergie pour nous tous. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, and many thanks to your government during this pandemic to keeping an eye on the small and medium income levels and provide some relief to them through different measures. And you mentioned, Mr. Minister, togetherness. This is very important, togetherness in Africa, and Africa, Europe, Africa, rest of the world, and all of us together to address this big challenge of pandemic, but also, again, sustainable development. Before going to other colleagues, I want to mention one important number, which I believe is important to underline. Many colleagues talk about the climate change, a key issue for all of us. But Africa is today at the forefront on the effect of climate change in terms of drought, in terms of immigration, in terms of the extreme weather events. But Africa is responsible only 2% of global emissions. 2% of global emissions Africa is responsible, but will get or is getting perhaps the biggest impact, negative impact of climate change, which is definitely not a fair distribution. In this context, I would like to now move to our next speaker very soon, which is the Mr. Riccardo Pulitti. He is the, I have the Mr. Fatih from Germany in Berlin. I see Mr. Fatih here before moving to United States, to World Bank. Mr. Fatih is the State Secretary and in the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Energy. It is very nice to see you again, Mr. State Secretary. I hope all is well and fine in Berlin. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Fatih Birol. It's good to see you, at least virtually. Dear Mr. Minister Cissé, all distinguished ministers, excellencies, good to see you here, and a big thank to the agency for organizing this very important event. As you said, and also all the speakers said, this pandemic is, of course, a global challenge for all of us, be it a developed country or developing country. So we see all the same challenges. Because of the corona crisis and the economic shutdown, many African countries are facing severe shocks in energy demand. As I learned in Tunisia, for example, the electricity demand went down 30% in only 2 weeks from mid to the end of March. So between 10 to 20% is so the mid of the drop of energy and electricity demand. In Germany, we share the same experience. Yet while energy consumption went down, our energy system has been proven robust despite high shares, very high shares of renewable energies of above 50% in the electricity mix in March, April, and May. As the time is short, let me emphasize on only one specific success factor when it comes to security of supply. Thanks to digital tools, the transmission system operators in Germany were able to operate the energy system without any trouble. They set up emergency plans, including, for example, the implementation of a work from home schedule and increased use of telephone conferences. And they could rely on already well-established data systems for load and weather forecasting, for electricity trade and ancillary services. Those weather forecasting is, of course, very important when we have, because we have a high share of electricity, renewable electricity in our system. During this crisis, digitalization has proven its strength for the energy system. Digitalization will play an even bigger role in shaping the energy future worldwide. A fact that the IEA report on digitalization and energy underlined already in 2017. Digital solutions in the energy system enable major leaps in development, lower integration costs, and the establishment of sustainable business model and practices. Africa as the continent of growth and opportunities offers a wide field for new and tailor-made digital applications for sustainable energy solutions. In fact, digital energy innovations can propel the continent's transition towards a green, reliable, and affordable energy system. Thus, when talking about green recovery and future investments in the power sector in Africa, digital innovation should become an integral and crucial part of the discussion. Its potential is vast, especially with regard to new business models, where the next generation of young energy entrepreneurs could contribute with the ideas to reach SDG 7, spur economic development, and fight climate change. My ministry will continue to support our partner countries in Africa through our bilateral energy partnerships, for example, in Morocco or Ethiopia, and bilateral energy cooperation to tap into the potential of digitalization to spur innovation and advance Africa's energy systems. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. State Secretary. May I take this opportunity to congratulate Germany for the very impressive hydrogen strategy that you put on the table. You may remember, Mr. State Secretary, during the G20 meeting last year, Prime Minister of Japan, Abe, asked the IEF to prepare a hydrogen roadmap. It was perhaps the first and still perhaps the most comprehensive strategy. And I was so delighted to see Germany coming with a very strong hydrogen strategy and also putting the money next to that. Congratulations. I hope to see the same impact on hydrogen that the Germany did several years ago on solar and wind and bring the cost down. So thank you very much to you and to your government, Mr. State Secretary. Many colleagues mentioned the European Green Deal. So this is the, and there's a lot of discussion around that. And the deal is in making, and one of the architects or implementers of this Green Deal is with us, Mrs. Ditte Jorgensen, who is the Director General of Energy in the European Commission in Brussels, and at the same time, an esteemed member of IEA Governing Board. Mrs. Jorgensen, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Birol. Fatih, nice to see you again. And we are very happy from the European Union to participate today and to support your work in the IEA with Africa and to work with Africa. And the ministerial meeting today clearly demonstrates the very high level of interest and high level of expectations and support for international cooperation in the field of energy at the time of this unprecedented crisis, as others have said. Everyone has been challenged, and we are, of course, following closely developments in Africa, aware of the difficulties that countries in Africa meet in terms of maintaining a system working, ensuring financial flows, and avoiding to disconnect fragile consumers. We, as others have said, also in Europe, faced a very significant drop in demand. Electricity demand in some of the European member states dropped by more than 20%. But as State Secretary Fatih from Germany has just said, we did not see blackouts, but the European energy system proved its resilience. I would like to say just a few words about that, how we have managed the crisis, on what basis, a bit about the Green Deal, as you referred to, Fatih, and then how we hope to continue to work with Africa also in the recovery and in the Green Deal. Now, first of all, as regards the European energy system in this crisis, we have been well prepared, thanks in particular to a very integrated pan-European electricity system based on market regulations, regional cooperation mechanisms, and infrastructure connections or interconnections that we have built over the past decades, all helping to improve resilience, together with close coordination between different actors in the sector. That has helped us manage the crisis, but it has also over time allowed us to accommodate an increasing share of renewable power into our electricity market, thanks to our electricity market design in Europe. We are now in this crisis looking ahead to our recovery and to the global recovery, focusing on a green and digital recovery, very important also for the topics today. You mentioned our Green Deal, and that's our strategy, our growth strategy in Europe, but it has also become a path to recovery
combining the green and the digital. We know that recovery, both in Europe and globally, will require unprecedented investment. It is a challenge, but as Kitty from the Netherlands also said, it is also an opportunity to review and reshape our energy systems for the future and for a sustainable recovery, which you have so clearly set out in your recent report, Fatih, about sustainable energy recovery. That's also why we're looking at a recovery that can both rely heavily or bring in the energy system, and where we see investments that can bring jobs, growth, and sustainable growth across Europe. So the recovery we have been proposing in Europe is one that strengthens our economy by focusing on the European Green Deal, on digitalization, and on strengthening our resilience for the future. In that context, we have, of course, also reinforced or suggested to reinforce our financial instruments for development and international cooperation. We have reinforced the budget for support to Africa by 2 billion in 2020 in a guarantee capacity, plus 1.6 billion to contract out European development financial institutions. And we look forward to continuing our close cooperation with Africa, also in the energy sector. As others have said, including ministers from Africa, the African continent holds a very high renewable energy potential, and in particular, of course, in solar energy. African nations can bring to their citizens a clean and cost-efficient and reliable service through renewable energy. I would like to mention finally also the role of energy efficiency, both for Europe, for our own green transition and for our own recovery, but also for Africa. As your report has clearly set out, energy efficiency and investment into energy efficiency is particularly effective in bringing both a green transition, lowering the consumption and lowering greenhouse gas emissions, but also in creating local jobs and growth, both in here in Europe, but also in Africa. And as IEA reports have told us, it's possible to multiply the African economy by 4 by 2040, while keeping the rise in energy demand under 50%. This will be possible only because of energy efficiency gains. So to sum up, our energy system has proven resilient during the crisis, thanks to the measures I mentioned. We see a growing share of renewables in the European energy system. They have proven cost effective and also helped us create resilience. But energy efficiency is a must as we go ahead and as we build our green recovery. We look forward to working more closely with the African Union Commission in the coming months as planned, as well as the regional economic communities and national governments on designing similar systems in Africa, and to working closely both with the IEA and Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dita. This is an excellent speech, but the best news was in my view, of course, that your budget for Africa is still very high. It once again underlines Europe's commitment for Africa's development, despite all the challenges we are facing today. Now, before going to World Bank to hear banks which lends money to Africa and beyond, because in the beginning I mentioned the need for international cooperation and solidarity. We heard from IMF, we are going to hear from World Bank and other colleagues now. But one good news, at least from our point of view, I should say, is the following, just a live update to you. I was very happy when my colleagues told me we have 14 ministers from Africa, and not such a meeting took place with so many ministers this year on energy, covering 2/3 of the African energy use. My colleagues just told me from communication department that this meeting is followed in social media almost by 10,000 people. So this shows the interest in African issues, energy issues, and in my view, also a sign of trust in energy, the energy leaders in Africa, if they take their positions right, for which IEA will be a big supporter. So thank you very much for all those who are following this live ministerial debate today, organized by Senegal and the International Energy Agency. Now, may I turn to Mr. Politi, yes, World Bank. Very nice to see you, Ricardo. Looking forward to hear World Bank's views in the time of COVID, Africa, African energy. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Fatih. First of all, good morning, good afternoon to all of you, excellencies, colleagues, friends, I have to say. Thank you very much to the International Energy Agency and to Senegal for organizing this important event. We value our close partnership with the IEA, we value our close partnerships with all African countries and all the countries in the world, and we benefit from all the data, the analysis, and the excellent speeches that we heard so far. I have to say, all of us, I suppose, know the magnitude of the challenge facing the Africa electricity sector, reduction in demand, reduction in bill collection because of problems of income. This has a big impact on utilities, on private companies, private generators, for example, and on government themselves. Our aim so far has been to respond quickly to this crisis while laying the groundwork for a sustainable recovery and accelerated progress toward achieving universal access. And this is actually what we've been doing with our partners, being them countries, being them domestic utilities, international investors, because as someone said earlier during this fantastic gathering, I have to say we have to make sure that the private sector is still be attracted to investing in electricity in Africa, and the investors who are already there are retained in Africa so that new investment can come forward. In the immediate term, the World Bank operations have been prioritizing clean, reliable, and affordable energy for critical health facilities and medical cold chains. You realize that without the possibility to freeze drugs, it would be very difficult to counter the medical effect of this terrible disease. In Nigeria, for example, we have been electrifying 100 isolation centers and primary healthcare centers with the direct procurement of solar hybrid power solutions. We are also working, and I think it is the duty of all of us, to avert disconnections among the most vulnerable energy consumers, the one that cannot pay but cannot be left absolutely behind. The economic impact of COVID on the most vulnerable cannot be underestimated. So in Côte d'Ivoire, in Guinea, and in Mali, we supported the compensation mechanism designed by the government to provide a payment holiday to those most impacted by the economic slowdown to the COVID-19. Of course, in a context like this, and it was mentioned about Europe, which is, we all know what kind of connections there are, and so we are very, very concerned about to make sure that we can ensure service continuity. I know I'm preaching to the converted, but electricity is basic for the cold chain of drugs, is basic for the food chain that cannot be used if it's not properly frozen and taken care of. It is absolutely necessary for agriculture. It's necessary for water. Let's not forget that a lot of water is pumped by electricity pump. So it's really, really very, very, very basic. So making sure that utilities work, that private generators work, and all the rest is very much one of our concern. In Guinea-Bissau, for example, we have restructured a project to enable the government to pay arrears and fuel for the next 5 months, while working on a more structured reform program to improve the operational performance of the utility, so keep the lights on. In Mozambique, we have also made available a substantial amount of funds to acquire and distribute personnel protective equipment for employees and to increase sanitation of corporate facilities. You realize that in a situation like that, workers in the electricity sector are emergency workers. because if there is no electricity, it's quite of a problem. We also helped off-grid solar and mini-grid companies, most of them domestic, I have to say, to survive with vital contracts and bridge financing to provide essential liquidity. Liquidity is very important for utilities, for private operators, to make sure that the system works and we can still be, Africa can still be attractive to domestic and foreign investors. But our response to COVID-19 should also be a catalyst to accelerate change. This is what we have to do now, but we have to look at the future. We have to accelerate our work in order to achieve the SDG 7 and our climate goals. It is not the moment to drop the ball now. Mobilizing capital, optimizing technologies, and adopting the enabling conditions for universal energy access will be crucial to the post-COVID recovery phase. Sub-Saharan Africa is where the access battle will be won or lost. That is why the World Bank Group is preparing an initiative to lead the effort towards achieving this important goal within SDG 7. And the idea is to reach by 2030, not only universal access, but the objectives to have universal access for health clinics and schools as well. This initiative would be achieved through increased financial resources to support reforms and investments. So absolutely keep the lights on, think about the clean energy, because this is where the future lies. Make sure that this incredible problem of access is solved before, as soon as possible. It's not good for anybody of us. We call on all the participants here to renew their commitment to all these goals. We are really ready to build back together. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Fatih.
Thank you, Ricardo. Yeah, you mentioned they keep the lights on as a major goal. This is one very important goal, but the other one is many countries need to bring the lights to those who don't have the light yet. And I think in that context, what Nigeria minister told me makes me very happy that the target of Nigeria, having 90% access by 2030, didn't change, and the minister and his government is still sticking to that target and making sure that every day many new people have access to electricity. So we have two important challenges. One, keep the lights on. Second, bring the lights to the people who don't have it. And many countries around this virtual table are making excellent efforts in Sub-Saharan Africa and also in North Africa. Now, from World Bank, may I now move to IRENA, International Renewable Energy Agency. My very good friend, Francesco La Camera, he's there as usual. Francesco, it is very good to see you. Congratulations for your recent reports on renewables and its role. Very much appreciated. The floor is yours, please, Mr. La Camera. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And first, I wish to thank His Excellency Minister Cissé and you, my friend Fatih, for inviting me to be part of this important and timely event. I wish to start from one number. The outbreak could push between 40 to 60 million people into extreme poverty. These are numbers that come from the World Bank. To challenge this, we have to. It's crucial that we recognize the important role, the integral role of the energy within our economy and our society, our lives, and the role that it can play in the recovery. We, as ARENA, we estimate that over 170 gigawatts of cost-effective renewable power can be deployed in Africa in the next decade. A few weeks ago, Commissioner Abu Zaid and I, we hosted a discussion with other countries. As you know, almost all African countries are members of ARENA, and with development partners on how to harness the potential, as you say, on renewable energy in the frame of the COVID. And one item that has been outlined in that meeting was the nexus between health and energy. recent report that you just mentioned set out where energy transition investment and policy measures can meet multiple economic, social, and climate objectives, including on jobs, GDP, and human welfare. We estimate that around 20 jobs in Africa may be created for every US $1 million invested. But investment need to grow exponentially. We estimate in our global renewable outlook that we need 105 billion of clean energy investments per year for the sub-Saharan Africa. The fact is that Africa altogether receives no more than $10 billion US per year of support. And this gives the sense of the increasing needed in terms of cooperation. And also this help is going only for a few number of African countries. So also inequalities is there as to be considered. You know, ARENA is working mainly in this period on supporting countries in raising its ambition under the NDCs. We have several African countries that we are supporting. We are supporting 110 around the world. And the other activity that is engaging ourselves in this week, trying to find a good way to bring a country in the right path to recover, is our climate investment platform. We have been we have launched with the UNDP C4All, and we are working very closely with C4All on many aspects. In this week, we are trying to strengthen our cooperation with them on Africa, especially, and also with the Green Climate Fund. And what is good to know that we have already, through our digital platform, we have already collected a significant number of projects that may be bankable for more than a few billions dollars for the time being. And we have already received interest from 130 entities, including multilateral banks, but private companies, small local company, to be part of this, our exercise in Africa. And we hope that next year, when the pandemic will allow us, we will start to convene in 5 sub-region Africa, our investment forum. So I hope that ARENA perspective and ongoing work may support country in their path to the energy transition and make the recovery going in harmony with the short-term trends, with the medium and long-term development and climate objective. ARENA is ready to cooperate with everyone that's going to go for a better and cleaner world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Francesco, for this excellent speech, and congratulations for the excellent work the ARENA is doing in many parts of the renewable sector and in Africa and beyond. Thank you very much and congratulations. Now, may I come back to France, to Paris, if I may say so. We have the Deputy CEO of the Agence France de Développement, Monsieur Bertrand Valkener. The floor is yours, Mr. Valkener, to hear the French view in terms of development and the role of Africa and energy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, Dr. Birol. Merci également, Monsieur le ministre du Sénégal, Cissé, pour cette invitation à participer à cette conférence sur les enjeux auxquels l'Afrique fait face en matière énergétique dans le contexte particulier de la pandémie actuelle. Et je tiens à signaler à ce titre que je partage le propos du ministre namibien de l'énergie qui indiquait que nous sommes tous challengés par cette crise qui se déploie en ce moment, pays riches comme pays moins riches. L'Agence française de développement, qui est donc le bailleur français bilatéral, a concentré son action dans un premier temps sur la mise en place de mesures de court terme pour permettre d'assurer le fonctionnement des opérateurs énergétiques et leur apporter un soutien financier dans cette phase extrêmement compliquée pour eux. Je ne rappellerai pas les différents enjeux qui ont été soulevés par les participants qui sont intervenus jusqu'à présent. Ce soutien de court terme, et c'est l'un des premiers points que je voulais souligner, ce sont des mesures pour traiter les problèmes de liquidité, pour traiter les problèmes de paiement et pour traiter les problèmes de financiers auxquels les opérateurs peuvent faire face. C'est extrêmement important dans cette phase de la crise pour leur permettre de restructurer les encours financiers qu'ils peuvent avoir pour leur permettre de faire face à leurs dépenses incompressibles et pour accompagner certaines politiques qui ont été mises en place dans ces pays pour soutenir les populations les plus vulnérables. Le deuxième volet sur lequel nous avons concentré nos mesures de court terme a consisté en l'organisation de séminaires pour permettre à des opérateurs à travers plusieurs pays africains de partager leurs expériences et les mesures mises en œuvre pour traiter les problèmes de la crise. Et je crois qu'à ce titre, ce partage d'expériences par le biais de vidéoconférences a été utile et a été apprécié pour voir un petit peu à travers différentes géographies quelles étaient les mesures mises en œuvre pour traiter ces problématiques. Le deuxième point qui me paraît important dans le contexte dans lequel nous nous trouvons aujourd'hui, c'est que cette crise n'est pas terminée et on ne sait pas encore très bien comment est-ce qu'une deuxième, une troisième vague de pandémie continuera à se déployer, mais qu'il nous paraît dès à présent à la fois important de traiter ces mesures de court terme que je viens d'exposer et de travailler sur les enjeux de moyen et de long terme auxquels les pays et leurs opérateurs font face. Et j'en retiens, en cohérence avec ce qui a pu être mentionné un peu plus tôt aujourd'hui, je retiens 4 enjeux principaux sur lesquels l'Agence française de développement et ses partenaires seront amenés à travailler. Le premier, c'est la question de l'investissement privé, qui est aujourd'hui fragilisé par le contexte dans lequel certains pays peuvent se trouver. Et si on veut pouvoir continuer à accompagner les transitions énergétiques, si on veut pouvoir continuer à accompagner le développement de l'énergie, il faut pouvoir continuer à mobiliser et sécuriser l'investissement privé. Le deuxième enjeu, c'est celui de l'efficacité énergétique, avec la nécessité de faire toujours mieux et de toujours améliorer, dès le départ dans les projets sur lesquels nous travaillons, la prise en compte de l'efficacité énergétique. Troisième enjeu qui a été soulevé par l'Agence internationale de l'énergie, c'est celui de la régionalisation et comment faire en sorte que les économies africaines soient mieux intégrées, comment faire en sorte, comme le ministre marocain de l'énergie l'a rappelé, de mieux intégrer à une échelle du bassin méditerranéen et avec les pays européens des réseaux énergétiques pour pouvoir s'appuyer les uns les autres dans le contexte d'une crise. Et puis enfin, l'innovation est évidemment absolument stratégique avec les questions qui ont été soulevées par le ministre marocain de l'énergie. Innovation financière à travers la taxe carbone, innovation technologique avec les enjeux en matière de stockage et l'apparition de nouvelles énergies comme le fonctionnement de l'hydrogène. Enfin, et ce sera mon dernier point, je voudrais vous signaler la tenue en France les 10, 11 et 12 novembre 2020 d'un sommet des banques publiques de développement qui rassemblera 450 institutions publiques de par le monde qui représentent 10% de l'investissement mondial chaque année. Pourquoi est-ce que ce sommet est important? Parce qu'il vise à travailler avec ces acteurs absolument clés dans l'accompagnement de leurs économies, de la mise en œuvre des objectifs de développement durable, dont l'énergie fait partie. Et donc, je donne rendez-vous à ceux qui le souhaitent à l'occasion de ce sommet dont nous aurons l'occasion de reparler si cela vous intéresse pour ce rendez-vous en novembre. Et enfin, je conclurai en paraphrasant ce qui a été dit par les ministres de l'énergie du Royaume-Uni et des Pays-Bas, et je n'ai pas de bonne formule française pour le dire, donc je le formulerai en anglais. Green Growth for Our Children ou Let's Go Green, ça nous paraît effectivement absolument indispensable dans la suite des événements et dans la façon dont les plans de relance accompagneront la sortie de cette pandémie. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vakana. Much appreciated. Among other things, I mean, you highlighted one challenge which was not perhaps highlighted by me and other colleagues. In addition to energy, economy, the environmental issues, there is one big uncertainty. The crisis is not finished, maybe. The pandemic is not finished. We may well see second, third, other waves, and some of the data points coming from different parts of the world can reinforce such question marks, whether or not we will get another wave. Of course, once again, it will test the resiliency of our energy systems around the world. And thank you very much for reminding us that, among other very important points. Now, may I go to another good colleague of mine, namely Mrs. Damilola Ogunbiyi. She is the new CEO of SE for All. I shouldn't say new, it is already a few months. Damilola, it is great to see you as well. We are very much looking forward to hear your views, Damilola.
Thank you so much, Fatih, and thank you, IEA, for convening this event with the Senegalese government. And it's just really nice and reassuring to see so many African ministers and European ministers in the same place talking about this very, very critical topic. As we know, COVID-19 has shown us very clearly that energy access saves lives. Decentralized energy solutions are critical to meet SDG 7 universal access targets and also deliver inclusive growth. However, because of this pandemic, many off-grid businesses are at real risk of collapsing, and also some utilities. A particular concern for a new and emerging small business being developed by young African entrepreneurs. Even before the pandemic, if we were going to be honest, we were not on track to actually achieve SDG 7. Based on the new tracking reports, with a lot of input from the World Bank, IRENA, and the IEA, 789 million people still lack access to electricity today, of which 565 million of those are in Africa. As we plan our recovery, we must use this moment to redefine what we expect and the minimum standard of energy access. Energy access cannot just be lights anymore, but has to be energy for development, energy for productive use, and energy for economic activities. The recent IRENA report shows that in most countries around the world, renewables is actually the most cost-effective and the cheapest form of energy, and we must really embrace this. The Deputy Secretary General mentioned a few moments ago that there will be a high-level dialogue on energy next year at the General Assembly of the UN, of which I'm going to be the dialogue champion. And I would really be hoping to form deeper partnerships with IRENA, IEA, the World Bank, Power Africa, and many of you here today. It is the first time there's a high-level dialogue on energy in the last 40 years, and it's important that we highlight the energy sector of Africa. We now have a unique, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to actually recover better. SE4 launched a Recover Better with Sustainable Energy Guide for African countries today. And this was particularly important because of the stimulus packages that are currently being developed. We're already and really happy that some countries are already taking up the challenges, with Nigeria stating in their stimulus Recover Better package that they're going to have 5 million solar connections and haven't already removed fossil fuel subsidies. So if a large oil and gas country like Nigeria can make these steps, we feel that this is very positive. There's no better moment to move from energy systems of the past into renewable energy systems of the future. The benefits of recovering better is a clear return on investment as increased GDP, more jobs, 3.5 more jobs than the fossil equivalent, a resilient, healthy economy, healthier people, because powering healthcare is paramount, and a cleaner environment. So I will call on us today is to have renewed commitments, move a lot faster, and focus on implementation more than advocacy now. The time is now to really, really help and handhold African countries to achieve SDG 7. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Damilola. Now we have two colleagues left to finish the electricity part of our discussion before I pass over the floor to my dear friend, Minister Cissé from Senegal, to kick off the second and the last part of this discussion, which is going to focus on oil and gas. Now, the first one, before the finishing, two last speakers. The first one is the T.L. Cabbage, who is the Deputy Undersecretary of Department of Energy in the United States. Mr. Deputy Undersecretary, the floor is yours, please. Thank you. We cannot hear you. Mr. Kabach, we cannot hear you. We cannot hear you still. So while we try to fix this problem, Mr. Kabach, if you agree, I would like to go to Power Africa and then come back to you to the finish. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Makhtar from Power Africa, please.
Thank you, Dr. Birol and Your Excellency, Minister Cissé, for bringing us together today. I'm honored to be part of this discussion and thrilled to see so many of our partners here. For those of you who are not familiar with Power Africa, we are a US government-led partnership that combines the collective resources of 12 US government agencies, 19 development partners, and over 150 private sector partners. It is due to the strength of these partnerships that we were able to pivot quickly and help position the energy sector as a response to this global pandemic. The US government has committed over $1.3 billion so far as a global emergency response, providing emergency health, humanitarian, economic, and development assistance specifically aimed at helping governments, international organizations, and NGOs fight the pandemic. At the outset of COVID-19, it was immediately clear that a stable electricity supply is essential to all response and recovery efforts. Power Africa's response to date includes the redirection of over $3.5 million to power hospitals and healthcare facilities, bolster off-grid markets and service providers, and strengthen power sector ecosystems. For example, we recently issued $2 million in health-focused grants to assist in electrification of rural and peri-urban health facilities, and an additional $1.5 million to support the commercial viability of utilities and to promote renewable energy and energy-efficient technologies. We are working to not only strengthen health system resiliency, but also to pilot more commercially sustainable business models that can attract much needed capital into the sector, such as pay-as-you-go products for health facilities, mini grids with health facilities as anchor customers, and energy as a service models that reduce the need for upfront capital expenditures. While Power Africa is focused on the immediate here and now response, we also take a longer view toward recovery. Major utilities across sub-Saharan Africa have already suffered a 15 to 20% reduction in demand, as so many of my colleagues have stated. And as a result of COVID-19, as a result of the lockdowns, in the face of this new economic reality, we want to maintain a focus on increased energy efficiency, leading to lower generation costs and system losses. As we all know, COVID-19 is a stark reminder that our joint efforts to accelerate electricity access are about more than simply counting connections or electrons. These efforts are about supporting the financial viability of the sector to help power essential services such as hospitals. Through the strength of our partnerships with leaders like you, we help keep the lights on in millions of homes and businesses. Thank you again for your attention today. I want to keep it short and sweet, as I knew I'd be the last one before what likely would be a bit of a time crunch. So again, Power Africa is super excited to be part of this effort and these efforts to move forward. Thank you.
It's excellent, short, but you also told us in the real life, in concrete life, how much you are supporting in financial terms many African countries for vital investments for power and beyond. Thank you very much, Mr. Keynote, for your remarks, and as well as the great work that the Power Africa is doing. Now, may I try go back to Mr. Kabach? Can we try again, Mr. Kabach, whether if it works? No. I am very sorry. If you are able to fix it in the second session, we will be very happy to get you on the board second session. Perhaps your colleagues may give you a hand, as I always ask my colleagues here. Thank you very much, sir, for that. Now, dear colleagues, excellencies, we have a big tour d'horizon of the electricity in Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa, we went to South Africa, we went to Nigeria, we went to North Africa, Egypt, Morocco, many countries. We understood that in Africa, electricity is a key priority for governments before and even during the COVID process, which is excellent. The music to my ears as the head of the International Energy Agency. What is also very good that many governments in Sub-Saharan Africa and North Africa took measures to continue with the power supply to their citizens, and perhaps as impressive as that, many governments continue to increase the number of people who are benefiting of electricity in their countries. And their determination to have a universal access to electricity didn't change. It was very heartening to hear from the UN Deputy Secretary General her views that the United Nations takes the sustainable development, and within that power, electricity access, energy access, we shouldn't forget the access to clean cooking as key priorities. From the lenders, from IMF, World Bank, to see that the development in Africa is a key issue is definitely good news for all of us, as we all need international solidarity. Even Africa is now experiencing a recession since almost 2 decades. So electricity is at the heart of our fight against COVID. Electricity is a key priority for many governments in Africa, which is very good. And International Energy Agency will be there to support all those governments in different fronts, from the technical advice to use the IEA's convening power, global convening power, network with the governments, companies, and others to support those efforts. With this, I would like to pass the floor to my dear friend, Minister Cissé, to start the next session, please. Minister Cissé, the floor is yours.
Je vous remercie, Dr. Birol, et vous félicite pour le brio avec lequel vous avez mené cette première session. Je voudrais inviter mes collègues du Ghana, de Côte d'Ivoire, enfin, tous ceux qui sont inscrits pour ce second panel.
On n'entend pas le son.
Le son, vous l'avez perdu. Vous m'entendez là?
C'est marche,
c'est revenu.
C'est marche.
C'est bon?
Oui, c'est bon.
Je disais que nous aurons une dizaine d'intervenants pour ce second panel et il faudrait qu'on puisse rester dans le temps imparti pour terminer dans les délais. Et donc, la pandémie, naturellement, a fini de déréguler l'ensemble de l'économie, mais particulièrement le secteur pétrolier et gazier en Afrique. L'effondrement des prix pour les pays producteurs est un gros problème. Nous voudrions nous entretenir de ces perspectives avec les pays producteurs, notamment le Ghana qui est inscrit dans cette session. Mais également, la baisse des prix peut être aperçue comme une opportunité pour les pays non encore producteurs de pétrole pour gérer la transition énergétique. Et entre les deux, vous avez les pays qui ont des projets en développement comme le Sénégal, et dans quelle mesure ces projets peuvent être impactés, et de façon générale, quelles leçons tirées pour que le secteur, pour relever les défis du secteur pétrolier et gazier en Afrique, et surtout saisir les opportunités pour une relance qui ne peut pas ne pas arriver en Afrique. Donc, je voudrais commencer en donnant la parole à M. Mohamed Barkindo, secrétaire général de l'OPEC, qui est peut-être la personne la mieux indiquée pour ouvrir cette session. Vous avez la parole, Monsieur le secrétaire général.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Let me also join previous speakers in commending you and your co-traveler, my friend Fatih Birol of the IEA, in convening this very, very timely and important roundtable and bringing Africa to the forefront of the global energy transition, in particular during these unparalleled times. I listened attentively through the excellent presentations during the previous session on power. And for us in OPEC, energy poverty and climate change are two sides of a coin. And this is more profound in Africa. And so once again, I commend you for this very important session. The world, Your Excellency, continues to battle the ravages of this pandemic, which has now surpassed 10 million cases worldwide and has taken more than 500,000 lives to date. Africa currently, we understand a couple of hours ago, we don't know what it is now, has nearly 300,000 cases and has suffered almost 6,000 fatalities. In addition to the grave health crisis, the after effects of the pandemic have been vast and far-reaching, as we have heard from several ministers and speakers, resulting in one of the worst global recessions in decades. Africa has been severely impacted, particularly in its financial, energy, and public health sectors. According to our latest forecast here in Vienna, the continent's GDP is expected to contract by 2.5% this year. Major institutions have warned that more than 20 million jobs could be in jeopardy across the continent. In its revised GDP forecast published just last week, the IMF forecast a deeper global recession of nearly 5%, with sub-Saharan Africa contracting by an estimated 3.2% in 2020. This situation is even more acute when you consider that the oil and other hydrocarbons make up more than 20% of the GDP of the top 10 African economies. Several of them are in this roundtable today. These adverse conditions have led to a loss of operating revenue, dwindling investments, capital, and a slowing of economic diversification efforts. Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, the African continent, as we have heard from the IEA, Irina, and other speakers, is blessed with a wide array of natural resources, particularly oil and natural gas, which make up around 8% of the world's proven reserves. However, the fallout from this pandemic has kept Africa's petroleum industry from reaching its full potential. A refinery capacity on the continent, for example, remains far below oil demand, and the utilization rate of the existing capacity at around 60% can cover only half of daily consumption. Energy poverty, therefore, is another issue that remains at the top of the global agenda, particularly on the African continent. And further progress is now being put at risk due to the impact of COVID-19. This is all the more exacerbated with the intertwined challenge of energy poverty and climate change. In Africa, although they contribute, as we have heard from Fatih, less than 2% of the global CO2 emissions, climate change will pose a real or already posing a real challenge and further complicate the food security and energy poverty in the absence of adaptation and appropriate mitigation measures. In some parts of Africa, we are also seeing the impact of climate change now manifesting in communal conflicts. The extreme climate patterns are projected to have devastating impacts on African economies that can have a major bearing on the GDP of the whole continent through reduced agricultural yields, lower productivity, and human health impacts, not to talk of intra-regional migration. Millions of people on the continent still lack access to electricity. I believe I had from Fatih a figure of nearly 600 million people out of the population of 1.2 billion, meaning almost 50% of the population of this great continent has no access to electricity, despite the great efforts we have had from ministers of energy and power around the table. The number of people without access to clean fuels and cooking technology has even increased owing to rapid population growth and other dwindling or deteriorating parameters. As a result, about 85% of the population in this region lack access to clean fuels and technologies for cooking as of 2019. Going forward, the keys to enhancing the much needed investment in Africa's energy sector will require a combination of sustainably stable oil market, good governance, transparency, and broad stakeholder support. Mr. Chairman, looking ahead, there seems to be some light on the horizon, as we have heard from several ministers, as some of the world's largest economies have begun phasing out their national lockdowns, which has ushered in a much welcome surge in oil demand. There is also a positive momentum on the supply side with the historic ministerial decisions that we took in April and June, providing the much needed support to the market balancing process. To put everything into context, because of the magnitude of the meltdown, OPEC and our partners in the non-OPEC Declaration of Cooperation took a historic decision to adjust supply from global oil markets to the tune of nearly 10 million barrels a day, the largest in history of oil, and for a longest duration of nearly 2 years. We seem to be moving in the right direction, but we must remain vigilant in order to address a forecasted contraction in global oil demand of nearly 9 million barrels per day in 2020. To put it just mildly, I think we do agree with my friend Fatih in Paris that we are still not out of the woods. This is a massive undertaking, and we need all industry stakeholders to contribute. In this context, I would like to urge all African producers to join our global efforts through the Declaration and Charter of Cooperation to achieve a sustainable oil market stability and prosperity for all. Fatih, I do understand that you are also able to bring on board this roundtable the Secretary General of the African Petroleum Producers Organization, Dr. Ibrahim Farouk. I think it is time that together with the IEA and APO, we need to revisit and take stock from what we have learned during this pandemic, and hopefully maybe convene another roundtable that will focus on the participation of African producers in the global energy conversation. I leave that to you and Ibrahim. In closing, Mr. Chairman, I would like to leave you with the eloquent words of a great leader that I believe you know very well. and a poet of all times, Leopold Senghor, said as Senghor said, and I believe you will agree with him, the civilization of the 20th century cannot be universal except by being a dynamic synthesis of all the cultural values of all civilizations. It will be monstrous unless it is seasoned with the salt of negritude, for it will be without the savor of humanity. Unquote. How apt. In the spirit of our ongoing efforts to promote global energy cooperation, let us always seek to live out Senghor's noble vision of honoring the cultural values of all civilizations. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Merci beaucoup.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Secrétaire Général, et pour cette belle fleur en citant le défunt président poète du Sénégal sur la civilisation de l'universel, mais j'espérais que l'OPEC allait apporter à la corbeille un prix médian du pétrole qui allait satisfaire à la fois les producteurs et les importateurs, mais bon, nous attendrons pour la prochaine conférence. En tout cas, nous ne sommes pas tirés d'affaire, c'est ce que je retiens de vos propos. 20 pays africains, dont 20% de leur PIB dépendent du pétrole, ont des difficultés. Et donc, c'est justement le but de cette réflexion pour voir comment ensemble enclencher le processus inverse pour faire face au futur qui est déjà là. Donc, je vous remercie. Je voudrais inviter mon collègue du Ghana, son Excellence M. John Peter Ameou, à prendre la parole. M. Ameou, vous avez la parole.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all colleague ministers and moderators. On behalf of the good people of Ghana and on behalf of my president, His Excellency, Mouhamadou Akufo-Addo, I want to use this opportunity to thank the organizers of this beautiful forum, championed by my colleague minister from Senegal and IEA. The COVID-19 pandemic, as we clearly are aware, has hit the global economy. And of course, Ghana, as a partial index of every society, has not been left out in this pandemic. We all witnessed a period where the net effect in terms of the demand on oil has collapsed drastically. Crude oil prices has plummeted since the start of the year, dropping to 65% between January and April. Brent, for example, as you are well, dropped below $20, although it averaged about 23 barrels for the entire month of April. Ghana, as you are aware, is one of the emerging countries into the hydrocarbon territory. We found oil in 2007 with a lot of enthusiasm and zeal by Ghanaians with expectation that the black oil is going to turn the country around. There were lots of joy in the hearts of people and spring in steps of Ghanaians when oil was not found. I quite remember then the president, His Excellency John Ajapun clearly states that Ghana now with oil as a shot in the arm, we're going to fly high. Whether we have fly really high as a result of that expectations, Ghana it's yet to witness. Now, the impact of the pandemic has gradually led to decline in prices of oil, leading to significant drops in our revenue. In our projected budget for the year, we estimate an oil price of 62 barrels, with an estimated revenue of about $1.6 billion. With this 65% drop, we have lost almost about $1 billion as a result of the oil price. Our budget, in terms of the fiscal deficit, is expected to, widen. The deficit is expected to widen from, 4% as expected by the end of the year to 12.2% of GDP. Our last year growth was about 6.6% GDP growth. This pandemic has triggered it far below our expectation. Close of year GDP growth is expected to come as low as 1.2%. The price of gas was pegged at 4.75 per MMBTU for benchmark production volume of about 86.3 trillion BTU. Oil production generally has been affected as a result of the pandemic. Number one, the prices, and then number two has to do with the volumes. Ghana, prior to the pandemic, have a very aggressive and accelerated production program where we intend to increase our reserve to production ratio. We went to Parliament of the Republic of Ghana, put in a very brilliant fiscal regime, which enables companies to intensify their exploration regime. What we have witnessed within the period is that global fund has cut short, and so most of those exploration companies have redirected their targets out of Ghana. A typical company we are aware is our very good friend, a company coming from Norway, Aker Energy. It has a very aggressive exploration program and expected to spend quite in the range of about $7 billion to develop one of the new oil fields. That development had not seen the light of the day. We in the country for the first time has opened our first licensing round with a lot of enthusiasm, where a number of blocks have been sent up there to international oil companies to partake. Evaluations of those blocks, of course, have been delayed. And so our aggressive accelerated program, which was meant to increase our reserve to production ratio, practically has reduced. So the pandemic has a lot of effects, in the country. We've seen collapse of companies because most of these emerging companies, these are local companies along the value chain, could no longer have access to their daily activities, and those companies have laid off their staffs. So there have been a collapse in most of the companies. A lot of jobs in the country. Companies that are already in the production phase have seen tremendous loss of jobs. Tallow, as you are aware, use Ghana as one of the major bases where 80% of the tallow's global revenue comes from Ghana. Today, tallow, as you are aware, it's suffering seriously, partially because of the pandemic and also drastic drops in the oil prices. Disruptions of oil and gas value chain, as I've stated earlier on, down the middle belts and also the downstream and the lower stream of the sector, economic activities slow down, consumption of oil productions, and also consumptions of the other related activities are very low to weakness. So as a result of this, there have been tremendous loss in revenue. What does the country intend to do? The pandemic, as you see, also presents an opportunity for us. For us in Ghana, we look at some of the opportunities. We have begun to review again our fiscal terms. Some of these fiscal terms are directed to look at reducing some of the work values in terms of the volumes of work. Companies that may wanted to undertake exploration further, we need to really look at some of the fiscal terms to enable us do more aggressive negotiation. So we see it as a challenge, and that challenge, of course, is what we're transferring to some of the positive gains, so that we can use the opportunity as a pandemic, again, to open up the avenue for some of these international oil companies, which still looks at Ghana as one of the emerging zones. Don't forget, Ghana gradually has migrated largely from hydro, as one of our major sources of electricity generations, to hydrocarbon gas. Today, 60 to 65% of our electricity is generated as a result of the gas found that we are becoming more sufficient in terms of our electricity. Our electricity penetration in Ghana now is in the range of about 86%. The current president has an agenda that by the close of his second term, we should be doing about 90–91% of electricity. Electricity generation largely is because of our competence and our ability to make sure that we increase our hydro and also the hydrocarbon bases that we have. Sufficient gas reserves have been established. What it therefore meant is that we're going to put in a lot of combined cycle gas turbines to make sure that we have a mix of hydro and gas-fired turbines in the country. So the hydrocarbon industry in Ghana is still thriving. We have a lot of fields that are quite feasible and fields that are very prospective, that are open up for future explorations. I am a passion to people who believe in green energy. I believe in green energy. I understand clearly the concept of emission and what it means for African countries. But my colleagues, ministers in African countries, that's a word. That as much as possible as we all have an intention of migrating to green energy, we should not dare to do this such that the countries, the new industrialized countries that are coming in, will begin to suffer. For instance, I don't see how Ghana is going to industrialize with the green revolution that we're talking about, where energy sufficiency in terms of hydrocarbon is still slightly cheaper than solar energy. I don't see how Ghana is going to industrialize with solar energy. I don't see how any African country is going to industrialize with solar energy. As much as the attention is towards industrialization, we should also take into consideration the fact that energy prices are very cheap. Most of the developed countries that we witness today, they industrialize at a very cheap power price. Power prices less than 2-3 cents. Today in Africa, power is trading in some areas about 13 or 12 cents, per kilowatt hour. How can African countries industrialize? And so we don't want to use going green as an index to make sure that the newcomers into the industrialization zone, the African countries that want to industrialize should suffer. I totally disagree with that. And if the IEA can open a very big forum for us to engage this discussion, I think I'll be very interested. Colleague ministers, I want to say a very good morning to all of you for coming out with this innovative idea of having a joint law at this pandemic period. Thank you.
Je vous remercie, honorable ministre. L'énergie verte, nous y croyons tous avec vous. La transition énergétique ne nous laisse pas le choix d'ailleurs. Mais nous pensons, comme beaucoup l'ont dit ce matin, que l'avenir, c'est également les projets régionaux, surtout en matière d'énergie renouvelable, avec des barrages pour la sous-région, avec des grands projets solaires pour la sous-région. C'est à ce prix peut-être que nous réussirons la transition énergétique et ferons face aux défis du futur. Nous vous remercions et je voudrais inviter mon frère Abdourahmane Cissé, ministre du Pétrole, de l'Énergie et des Énergies renouvelables de Côte d'Ivoire, à prendre la parole.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le ministre et cher frère du Sénégal, et bien entendu aussi l'Agence internationale de l'énergie pour l'invitation et pour l'organisation de cette conférence. Je vais switcher en anglais. Je pense que ça va être peut-être un peu plus facile pour les autres participants. So, as far as Côte d'Ivoire is concerned, currently Côte d'Ivoire produces around 30,000 barrels per day of oil and around 210 million cubic feet per day. But globally, our country is a net importer of oil. It has already been mentioned by the people that actually spoke before me, but the pandemic has a big impact on our country, on the economy. In Côte d'Ivoire, we actually have to revise down our growth. We were expecting a growth of around 7% in 2020, and it's been revised by almost half. So we're expecting something around 3% this year based on the pandemic. It has also a big impact on our projects, both on ENP and also on the power sector. If you take, for example, ENP, we had some wells that were supposed to be drilled this year. Unfortunately, some of the companies actually called for force majeure. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to postpone the drilling that was supposed to happen this year. So it has a lot of impact in terms of projects in the country. On top of ENP, on the upstream side, we also have some impact on some of our power projects. You're probably aware of what people call the West African Power Pool. Côte d'Ivoire is exporting electricity to a lot of countries in the region. But unfortunately, given the pandemic, in the implementation of the West African Power Pool, we were supposed to send electricity to Sierra Leone, to Guinea. It was supposed to start this year, but given the pandemic, we had to postpone it. So currently, when we look at our estimates, we think it's gonna start no later than the last quarter of 2020. So the pandemic has a lot of impact in terms of what we actually have in mind and what we actually plan for the country. What we learn, and I would like to really focus on that. What are the lessons that we learned from the pandemic, and what are the perspectives also for the years ahead? Because that's the most important thing. I think most of the countries face the same thing. I would like to focus on three different areas. The first area is basically the pandemic shows that it's really important to create infrastructure. I mean storage, because when we look at what happened, if you don't have storage in terms of like LPG, in terms of petroleum product, in terms of crude oil storage, it's really, really not easy to function when the market is completely disrupted. So it's really important to build storage. In Côte d'Ivoire, for example, during the collapse of oil prices, we decided to buy some reserves of petroleum products. We actually managed to buy a few, but we would have liked to actually buy even more. And we didn't do that because we had insufficient storage to actually buy more products. So one thing that we learned is that we really need to buy sufficient and create sufficient storage, both in the LPG sector, but also in petroleum and oil. As far as Côte d'Ivoire is concerned, we have a refinery here. So that's the second thing also, which is also important. Second thing important is actually to upgrade our refinery. We have a refinery, we have a refinery capacity of around 80,000 barrels per day, 80. But unfortunately, our refinery, the product that we actually manufacture have a high sulfur content. So given the pandemic, we have decided to upgrade our refinery. We actually managed to secure the financing, and we actually launched the upgrade of the refinery. That's really important, both in terms of environment, but also in terms of producing some high value products so that we can actually create more value from the thing that we actually create here. And lastly, the third thing that we actually learned, and we actually knew that already, but the pandemic showed that it's really critical, is to really focus on local content. Focus on local content, the creation and the manufacturing of local products, and also the training of local staff. Because because of the pandemic, a lot of maintenance, a lot of projects were supposed to be done, but they've been suspended because the people that were abroad that were supposed to come into our countries were not able to come into the country to do the projects. If we had locally trained people to do the project would have been continued. So it's really important, given of the pandemic, that we start to focus on local content. We start to focus on training local staff so that we don't have to wait for people abroad to come into the country to do the maintenance, to do the projects. And as far as Côte d'Ivoire is concerned, we actually decided to launch some schools, two particular schools. One of them is going to be focusing on E&P and downstream with 2 master degrees in collaboration with the French Institute for Petroleum. They're going to be studying in Côte d'Ivoire and get the degree in Côte d'Ivoire. And then the second one is the master degree in renewable energy. So we really want to train local Ivorian, local Africans, so that they can actually work and get the training in the countries and work here. So I take the opportunity to invite my fellow partners, fellow African countries, so that they actually send some students in Côte d'Ivoire. It's part of a regional integration. We need to collaborate both in E&P, but also in education. So this is what I wanted to share. Thanks for the opportunity.
Je vous remercie, mon cher Abdou Rahman. Je crois que c'est des enseignements que nous pouvons partager également, notamment sur la mise à niveau de l'infrastructure de raffinage pour les pays qui en ont, et sinon la mise en place carrément pour ceux qui n'en ont pas, mais surtout l'infrastructure de stockage. Le stockage national de sécurité est une urgence pour tous les pays africains, je crois. Je voudrais inviter les autres intervenants à essayer de se limiter dans le temps imparti de 2 à 3 minutes pour permettre de terminer dans le délai. Et je voudrais sur ça inviter le PDG de ENI, M. Claudio De Calzi, en pensant ne pas avoir écorché son nom, à s'exprimer. M. Claudio, vous avez la parole.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, and I want to thank you, Senegal and the International Energy Agency and the Minister Cissé and my good friend Fatih Birol for inviting Eni to attend this important gathering, especially because it's on Africa, and Africa is our core area. We started in the 50s, and almost 50% of our budget for investment and operating cost is in Africa. We are in 15 countries. And from the beginning of our presence in Africa, we wanted to share the need of the society. So we had an approach that was far from our core business, that is exploration and production. And we invested more and more in the diversification, industrial diversification from our energy, oil and gas business. So we invest in agriculture and in different countries. We invested in access to energy in the sub-Saharan Africa. So we made an important choice to, in most of the country, instead of exporting LNG and gas, to use gas for domestic disposal or to create electricity. So we invested in the power plant. We invested 2.5 billion euro in the last 15 years. We invested in the transmission, so in the grid, and in the distributions. And now we are covering and giving access to energy to about 18 million people. Clearly, we work also on the renewable. The first renewable firm that we developed was in 1996 for water and also for households. So we gave renewable for small house, for cooking, heating, and that was the first pilot test. Then now we are investing and implementing renewables in North Africa. I'm talking about solar mainly in North Africa and in sub-Saharan Africa. When we talk about access to energy, we are delivering about 50 billion cubic meter per year to the domestic utilization, and we give 100% of our gas production in Egypt, Congo, Algeria, Tunisia, and Ghana. In Ghana, we develop a gas project for power, so sending gas to the Ghana power plant. I think that that also is more and more important because in our mission statement, we cover practically all the UN SDGs. So that really became our philosophy and our approach. Clearly with COVID, the situation became difficult for everybody, also for us. So we have to reduce drastically our investments, about 35% this year, and I think also in 2021. But that means that we have opportunity. So we continue to work in E&P, but we are increasingly invest in different kind of activity. Renewables is one, but also access to energy and off-grid renewables. That is important also due to the volatility of oil and gas that is now drastic with COVID, but we had a strong volatility of oil and gas in the last 6 years. So it's not easy to invest for the long term. So I think that the diversification, industrial diversification, access to energy, and work with the international partnerships. I'm talking about the World Bank. I'm talking about the UN agency. We had a very strong agreement with the UNDP, for example. We work together in some countries in Africa. I think that this kind of partnership. And now it's even more important to be able to invest and work in coordination with the government in all the different countries with the different objectives that each government has. So I think that the IOC company can play a big role, but not alone. And the coordination with Africa is essential for our company, is essential for my country, Italy, but is essential for Europe. So I think that after listening all the intervention before of different institutions, I think that is the right path that we have to follow. Thank you very much.
Eni est une grande entreprise italienne, européenne et mondiale reconnue pour son expertise dans le domaine de l'énergie. Mais ma remarque ne s'adresse pas spécifiquement à vous, elle est valable pour toutes les compagnies européennes de façon générale et américaine. C'est le risque qui est surévalué en Afrique pour vos interventions. Et je crois que c'est un bon point sur lequel nous devrions tous réfléchir pour mieux le maîtriser et permettre une plus grande intervention des compagnies comme Eni dans un partenariat gagnant-gagnant, comme on dit souvent. Nous estimons, et je crois que c'est que mes collègues le partagent, africains le partagent, que le risque en Afrique est souvent surévalué et empêche une intervention peut-être plus massive et plus systématique des grands groupes européens. Mais nous aurons l'occasion de revenir sur toutes ces problématiques, notamment sur l'énergie, le partenariat que nous pouvons avoir sur les énergies renouvelables. Merci en tout cas pour vos développements et je voudrais inviter mon voisin, frère et ami, le ministre du Pétrole et de l'Énergie de Gambie, à prendre la parole. Fanfa, je vous donne la parole. Et bienvenue à Dakar, voilà. Même si c'est par la magie de la caméra.
OK.
Yeah. Oui, vous pouvez parler. Vous êtes... oui.
OK. Well, oh, OK. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It is honorable participants. It is a great honor for me to deliver this short statement in this important ministerial roundtable. But before I begin, let me commend my Senegalese brother and colleague, His Excellency Makhtar Cissé, and also the IEA for organizing such a laudable ministerial. Distinguished participants, as in many other countries in the sub-region, the COVID-19 pandemic has severely impacted the petroleum sector in the Gambia in various ways. As a health precaution, the government gave directives for all taxis and other transporters to reduce the number of their passengers by 50%. As a result, the restrictions on the movement of vehicles during our lockdown, the demand for fuel has been significantly reduced to dampen the economic loss to the transporters. And of course, due to global petroleum price downturn, the government had to reduce the pump prices of PMS, that is the petrol, by 25%, ego, that's diesel, by 23%, and kerosene by 44%. In the Gambia, the levies on petroleum products contribute significantly to the government's revenue base. Consequently, the slump in the demand and the reduction of pump prices have directly affected the revenue base of government in 2020. For the upstream, although we are not a producing gold country, we are very much advanced and optimistic in the exploration projects, being in the a very prolific sedimentary basin, the MSGB basin, where the COVID-19 pandemic has created an uncertainty and delay in petroleum exploration activities. For example, our great partner FAR and Petronas joint venture in two of our offshore blocks, they have to postpone their drilling activities from this year to 2020 to 2021. And similarly, also the British Petroleum, a major oil company, which we have signed a concession agreement with, also had to postpone their drilling program in part of their work program for 2020 to 2021. these are actually affected our overall projection when it comes to oil and gas exploration. Hopefully by 2021, the pandemic will end, or hopefully we don't have any second wave or third wave of coronavirus in the world. Whilst the outcome of pandemic looks gloomy and the future is uncertain for all sectors, particularly the petroleum and energy sector, it gives opportunity for African countries, both oil producers and non-producers, to think of how to diversify the economies to reduce dependence on oil. You also have to think, particularly when it comes to power generation. We also have to think of increasing energy trade amongst ourselves and also regional integration and upscaling investment in renewable energy. And by this, I would like to, of course, make a comment on the regional integration efforts we are doing within West Africa, the OMVG particularly, and the West Africa Power Pool and the West Africa Gas Pipeline. These are projects that we actually need to support to be able to get energy efficiency, energy security in our sub-region. This moment of low oil and gas price also can be used for the ECOWAS countries to promote the use of cooking gas, LPG, to reduce or eradicate the use of fuel wood. In the Gambia, for example, almost 80% of our domestic energy supply is coming from fuel wood and charcoal, which has a big toll on our mega forest cover. And following our meeting in the there, I think it's one of the resolutions to promote the use of LPG. I think this can the current situation can create a venue for us to intensify that campaign. And low oil price can also lead to falling upstream service fees due to low demand in these services. So we are trying to take opportunity of that to see how we can intensify or extend our exploration activities, that seismic surveys. We are working hard with our partners, the TGS, your partners, and also FAR and Petronas, to see how we can have extended seismic coverage in the offshore area. And we are also taking the opportunity to review our petroleum legislation and regulations to see how we can investment in the area. We are working with the African Legal Support Facility to help in this area. So in essence, also I want to support my colleague from Cote d'Ivoire. We mentioned our local content. This is very, very important. And we talk about ownership. We have to build up our skills, build our knowledge, and train our people so that we're able to actually work hard and get energy projects our own. We have got our energy project, we have a big project, OMVG projects, but this has been delayed because simply the experts have left the country. So because of that, we don't have the local expertise to continue the project, so the project had delayed. So these are some of the interventions we are trying to do now to build local content and also to develop our regular real integration for energy security and efficiency and reliability in Africa. Thank you very much for kind attention.
Je vous remercie, mon cher collègue de Gambie. Et le Sénégal et la Gambie devraient donner l'exemple en collaborant un peu plus et sur le renforcement des capacités, développer les compétences locales. Vous êtes en phase avec le ministre ivoirien, Abdourahmane Cissé. Je crois que tout le monde est d'accord dessus. Parce que quand les compagnies ont rapatrié beaucoup de leurs équipes, nous nous sommes rendus compte que nous le savions, mais cela s'est confirmé. Il faut que nous développions une expertise locale. Merci pour votre intervention. Je voudrais maintenant inviter Madame Alessandra Toth, sous-secrétaire d'État pour le développement économique d'Italie, pour prendre la parole. Madame Alessandra, vous avez la parole.
Distinguished co-chairs, authorities, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to participate to this roundtable, and I would like to thank the International Energy Agency and the Senegal Petroleum and Energy Minister. I'm glad to share and discuss the new challenges and opportunities for the development of Africa's power system opened by this pandemic crisis. As for the Italian experience, the crisis due to the COVID-19 highlighted the importance of resilience in such an extraordinary situation, not only on health, but on a larger social and economic context. The Italian government is now hardly working to the economic recovery through a series of measures. Green transition is one of the pillars of this action. Not less important are new technologies such as green hydrogen, ocean energy, the new chemical industry process, the waste to hydrogen, biojet fuels and biofuels, to which the most important Italian companies are already committed. In a period characterized by the increasing need for systems digitalization, Italy's attention is addressed to accelerating research and innovation through a strong commitment to investments with a view to empower youth into entrepreneurship, which is a key force for innovation at local, national and global levels. On this perspective, the Italian Ministry of Environment, in collaboration with IEA, has launched a project to promote energy efficiency and digitalization, dedicated to developing countries in order to alleviate energy poverty. I'm confident that other countries will join this project. Besides technologies, we also need the human factors able to drive a sustainable development. We strongly believe that the training is a key element. Africa's future belongs to the young generation. It's up to them to guide their own continent out of the energy poverty, decarbonizing their own countries, while at the same time making the whole world greener, healthier and safer. A closer relationship is a fundamental step to improve the future of next generations. Italy is an active, aware of long-lasting relationship, already committed to realize infrastructure to link closely to the two shores of the Mediterranean Sea, being involved in many forms of energy concerning Africa. Thanks to the activity role played by Italian companies in many African countries, Italy offers its experience and skills to exploit natural resources, helping to sustain economic growth with innovative solutions and know-how in the oil and gas and other energy sectors. As mentioned by Mr. Descalzi, Africa plays a central role and absorbs almost 50% energy's financial budget. I believe that the time is ripe for countries and government to speed up their efforts and collaboration to ensure long-term energy planning, public and private, funding and an adequate political and financial incentives to rebuild resilient, solid, fair and sustainable economies in the post-COVID scenario. Africa will be in the center of the stage, not only for this important meeting, but also for the next IEA summit on clean energy transition on July 19th. Also, COP26 UN climate conference between November 1st and 12, 2021 is in Glasgow, will be a great opportunity to focus on Africa. Moreover, encounters with Africa, outreach event on climate and environment issues will be an ideal bridge on 2021 between the COP26 under the Italian British co-presidencies and the next COP27 under African presidency. I thank you with your kind attention, confident that this meeting will contribute to reinforcing our commitment toward the future of energy sector in Africa.
Je vous remercie, chère madame. Je retiens incitation économique et financière. Tous les États s'y emploient, on peut mieux l'organiser. Je retiens aussi formation, recherche, innovation. C'est quelques-unes des clés pour les défis du futur et nous prenons acte et note. Les échanges se poursuivront suivant ce triptyque qui me paraît essentiel, la formation, la recherche et l'innovation. Et je voudrais sur ce inviter l'honorable Franck Fanon, secrétaire adjoint pour le Bureau des ressources d'énergie du département d'État des États-Unis d'Amérique à prendre la parole avec le rappel sur le temps. Nous avons déjà 30 minutes de retard sur l'agenda. Et je voudrais, si le temps le permet, d'ailleurs à la fin, donner à votre collègue du ministère de l'Énergie, du département de l'Énergie, la parole à la fin, parce qu'il n'a pas pu participer à la première session pour des problèmes de connexion. S'il est toujours en ligne, nous lui donnerons la parole après. Monsieur Fanon, you are welcome.
Thank you, Minister Cissé. Thank you, Fatih, for bringing us all together today. This is an absolutely critical panel. Thank you for your leadership. I had the great pleasure of visiting several Southern African nations last fall and appreciated the warm welcome I received. I'm very pleased to see many of the ministers that I visited with on that trip participating today. In remarks just a few days ago, Secretary of State Pompeo reiterated that the United States remains Africa's most committed partner in promoting transparency and combating the scourge of infectious diseases, including COVID-19. As you know, and was discussed, the COVID pandemic has led to the sharpest drop in crude oil and gas demand in history, which was followed by oil price instability, creating extraordinary volatility in the oil market. American diplomacy in partnership with IEA and the G20 helped work to stabilize world oil markets. Nevertheless, the crisis has also significantly altered the investor appetite for new projects and has put several projects on hold. In many cases, oil and gas producing African nations have been forced to put austerity measures in place. With lower state budgets, many energy projects across the continent are now under pressure or at risk. Many speakers today called for the private sector, the critical need to attract that investment. And also, I heard one speaker refer to energy for development, not just for revenue. I think those are critical touchstones. With robust good governance systems in place, nations competing for extremely limited investment dollars could lose out to other regions with more attractive above-ground risk profiles. Or worse, Africa will attract predatory investors who claim to offer much better but deliver a legacy of indebtedness. I'd therefore like to submit to you that good governance in the energy sector is actually more important now than ever before. Governments must ensure they have open business climates and transparent operating conditions. That's the only way to attract world-class investments. And there are some very positive developments in Africa and some positive trends among some countries that are making a real difference. I'd like to just speak to three of them and then move on. First, Angola, which continues to make real progress in real reform in its mining and oil sectors. And Uganda has passed petroleum sector reform legislation, including fiscal reform, and is now moving forward to build a refinery in East Africa. And recently I spoke with Nigerian Minister of State for Petroleum, and really his country is making laudable moves in their petroleum ministry bill. But I'd also like to underscore that many speakers raised Africa's clean energy potential, both in terms of the adoption and integration of clean energy sources, but also I'd like to underscore the minerals that allow for the clean energy transformation to occur, many of which are there in Africa. I'd just like to note that the US has joined with Botswana, Australia, Canada, and Peru to form a new organization called the Energy Resources Governance Initiative to promote and provide, not to promote good governance, but also to provide a toolkit, ergi.tools, as well as capacity building and development finance to implement some of these measures to catalyze the private sector investment we also know is critically important. We think that Africa's contribution really is an all of the above contribution, not just for the benefit of the people of the continent, but also for the planet. Thank you.
Secrétaire d'État pour cette belle intervention. Et je voudrais tout de suite enchaîner avec M. Pascal Alberto Bacella du Mozambique, directeur national du ministère de l'Énergie et des Ressources minérales. Ingénieur, vous avez mentionné.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me well. Honorable Minister of Petroleum and Energy of Senegal and the chairperson of the session, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of His Excellency Max Tonela, Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy of Mozambique, I have the great honor and privilege to address this distinguished audience of this Africa Ministerial Roundtable, a relevant and timely event for the difficult situation that the whole world has been going through since the beginning of this year. As an African country and holder of large natural gas reserve and equally affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, Mozambique cannot remain indifferent, and therefore it's quite clear for us that the impact of the COVID-19 and the necessary response for governments will mean that the next 1 or 2 years, at least, it will be very challenging for economic and social development in all countries of the world. The oil and gas is one of the sectors in which Africa and the world will be confronted with significant challenge. For African crude oil exporting countries, the expected fall in demand means that exports of crude oil in 2020 will be down by a considerable percentage compared to recent years. Prices are also expected to fall. These low prices, coupled with a reduced output, could see Africa's larger oil producers facing billions of dollars of loss in oil value in 2020. For consuming countries, the low per capita consumption of oil for transportation and in many African countries will not significantly gain from lower prices, which is limited by low demand and in a very likely limitation on storage. In the case of the Mozambican oil and gas industry, the immediate impact of the COVID-19 pandemic could potentially be the delay of investment projects by local and international oil and gas companies and investors, given the fact that we are at a crucial stage of the LNG infrastructure development. Some of the key staff involved in the ongoing Mozambique gas projects are from countries that have been seriously affected by the pandemic and have put in place travel restrictions. Mozambique has also put in place a 14-day quarantine for everyone entering the country. The impact of the new coronavirus on the oil and gas industry have been compounded by a depressed global gas market that can retract investment in the sector, resulting in the awareness of investors in making investment decisions. The looming uncertainty in global energy outlook and LNG supplies that's set to rise by 2025 may affect visibly the LNG project's investment plans. However, it's quite encouraging to note that one of the joint ventures involved in the Rovuma gas projects reaffirmed recently that despite the pandemic situation caused by the COVID-19, the schedule of the project will not be affected, and the first LNG train is expected to be commissioned by 2024. As far as the government of Mozambique is concerned, everything will be done in coordination with development partners, investors, and civil society to ensure that all necessary measures are taken within the context where a balance between the economy and the health of Mozambicans prevails. With these few words, I thank you very much for the attention.
Je vous remercie pour votre intervention. Trouver l'équilibre entre la santé de l'économie et la santé des populations. Le président du Sénégal a répondu hier, donc je vous renvoie à son discours. C'est exactement la formule qu'il a utilisée dans son discours à la nation hier. Je voudrais inviter M. Hiroto Kamishi, le directeur général, non, excusez-moi. Avant elle, il y a plutôt Mme Franny Lotier, associée principale, groupe Southbridge. Madame, vous avez la parole.
Merci, Monsieur le Ministre. And thank you to Dr. Birol and yourself for inviting us to this a very important panel and very important topic. Because a lot has been said, I will focus my remarks on the gas sector. Why gas? Because Africa has abundant supplies of gas. Also because gas can be the transition energy that helps Africa move towards cleaner energy. And thirdly, because gas can be used right now in combined hybrid solutions that allow even better emissions profiles. So then how can we engineer such a revolution or gas revolution in Africa? The first thing is for each country to think of how it can use gas for its own domestic purposes. And this requires rolling out the development of gas infrastructure for industrialization, for transport, and for residential use, particularly for cooking. Second, it will require regional solutions on how to build regional infrastructure, whether it's power grids, pipelines, roads, and rail, that would enable that gas to be used on a continental scale. And this will require a partnership between government and the private sector. Let me start first with government. Government would need to decide how it evolves the transportation stock. Will transport be electric? Will it be hydrogen, or will it be gas-based? Because those choices will be very critical in evolving the role of gas. And the advantage is that with very few modifications, gas transmission infrastructure can be used for hydrogen and can be used, of course, for generating electricity needed for transport. So regardless of what African countries choose to use the energy for, whether it's electricity, hydrogen, or gas, the gas sector will play an important role because its infrastructure is transformable. Secondly, government will need to put in place legislation, incentives, and encourage and support such a transformation. And once that has been done, it would unlock finance for upstream projects as well as the important downstream projects that are needed, including for compressed natural gas. Then what is the role of the markets, the financial markets in particular? I think there will be great opportunities for financial markets to come and work with the local investment opportunities, the pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, and other local resources to develop financing structures that would ensure development of integrated gas projects. This would be, for example, attracting foreign direct investment to be paired up with local domestic resources for the types of industries that will be powered by that kind of gas transmission projects, and also, of course, the transportation stock. Secondly, it will be important for the private sector to work with government to figure out how to get currency stability. Because if you export gas from one country to another, the currency fluctuations across borders become a key issue. So that would be needed, firstly, especially through the role of central banks. And the second important area would be risk sharing between the upstream and downstream. And of course, allowing Africa to export its gas should the market prices become favorable, and how to manage those risks. And then finally, to work together to develop long-term finance solutions. You just saw Austria launched a 100-year bond. Africa can launch multi-year bonds that would support the development of its cleaner energy infrastructure. In the interest of time, I will stop here. Thank you, Mr. Minister.
Je vous remercie. Je rappelle que, contrairement à ce que vos noms et prénoms peuvent laisser penser, vous êtes bien originaire de la Tanzanie et que Southbridge est une société panafricaine.
C'est bien ça, Monsieur le Ministre.
Merci. Et donc, je voudrais demander à M. Thomas Kabat de se préparer pour intervenir. Il devait intervenir dans le premier panel. Et il interviendra juste après le dernier intervenant de ce second panel, M. Hiroto Kamishi, directeur général adjoint et directeur du groupe pour l'énergie et mines de la JICA. Madame, M. Kamishi, vous avez la parole. Il n'est pas en ligne, c'est Kabach qui est en ligne. Oh, ben, allez-y.
Can I be heard?
Yeah, you come back. Okay.
Thank you. Can I be heard?
Oui, là, on vous entend, oui.
I'd like to thank the IEA, in particular, Dr. Birol and His Excellency, Minister Cissé, for convening this roundtable. I appreciate the indulgence of allowing me to speak now that I have connected by telephone. I'm honored to discuss today's important topic among these very distinguished panelists. As we address the setbacks caused by the current pandemic crisis, we cannot lose sight of long-term objectives. Solutions are needed that not only help nations cope with their immediate revenue shortfalls and supply deficits, but preserve the vital progress made in recent years in expanding electricity service and putting utilities on the path to long-term financial health, reliability of service, and a diversity of supply that is free from problematic influences and arrangements that can tend primarily to benefit others far away. For all of the challenges facing the African electricity sector, whether immediate or long-term, it is our belief that electricity utilities are in the best position to contribute to prosperity on the continent when they have open, transparent, and competitive markets grounded in the rule of law, streamlined regulations that offer clear rules of the road while avoiding unwarranted burdens and barriers, a sustained commitment to innovation, and a real choice among diverse fuels and energy technologies. In the United States, we have seen firsthand the positive impacts of this approach, including the massive expansion of our domestic energy production across oil, gas, and renewable generation technologies, our cleaner air and world-leading reductions of emissions, and our affordable electricity prices compared to international benchmarks. So, the United States Department of Energy stands ready to assist others in the challenge. Our department works to promote secure and reliable power generation from all fuels and energy technologies worldwide. With regard to electricity for Africa, our department is looking at potential markets for small modular nuclear reactors that are currently being developed. We are supporting the accelerating development of innovative energy storage technologies that enhance renewables. And we have also organized events focusing on country-specific oil, natural gas, and renewable energy opportunities. In coordination with Power Africa, my department and its national laboratories have provided policy advice to attract investment, provided technical assistance across the continent, from geothermal resource assessments in East Africa to carbon capture in South Africa, and we have continued to expand our natural gas handbook series to help identify and develop opportunities throughout the natural gas supply chain on the African continent. We are also working to mobilize our country's greatest strength, our innovative private sector, to help Africa respond to today's energy challenges and tomorrow's opportunities. We believe that energy should be reliable, affordable, and widely available for everyone globally. Through strong partnerships, innovation, training, and discussions like the one we are having today, we know that we can achieve that goal and meet the needs of the African continent for electricity now and in the future. Thank you.
Merci. Il était important d'entendre cette voix de l'Amérique pour prendre des engagements de coopération et de partenariat avec l'Afrique. Maintenant, le dernier intervenant de cette session est M. Hiroto Kamishi, que nous invitons à prendre la parole. Ensuite, nous demanderons à tous les intervenants de rester en ligne pour écouter les remarques finales sur lesquelles le Dr Birol reviendra tout à l'heure. M. Kamishi, vous avez la parole.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman, and Excellencies and ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I'd like to show my respect to you and your colleague and my colleagues also who are fighting very hard against COVID-19. And my sympathy goes to those suffered in your country and my country also. Regarding the natural gas development, Japan International Cooperation Agency, the governmental agency in charge of the implementation of the Japanese ODA programs, has been supporting the formulation of development strategy, associated capacity development, and transportation and infrastructure of energy, and development of associated infrastructure such as natural gas thermal. Natural gas development has been a difficult task for African countries, in particular newcomers, even prior to the COVID-19. For example, due to the weak energy market, the promotion of natural gas development has required elaborate, tailor-made strategies. Under the current situation, we cannot overstress the importance of such development strategies, which we have been supporting the formulation. One of our examples in Tanzania, we have been supporting the development of strategies, including the formulation of the development roadmap, such as in the major pillar of which is LNG development, an examination of measures to create domestic natural gas demand and the gas businesses, the transportation measures, and policy recommendation. For the support under the post or with COVID-19, we will conduct a survey and analysis on the impact of the COVID-19 on the LNG market and investment. And furthermore, expect impacts on the Tanzanian natural gas development, which will examine the measures to make the sector more resilient against unexpected shocks. It is also important to create domestic demand on natural gas, raise the people's familiarity to the natural gas utilization as a key for the success. For the natural gas importers, the development of sizable demand and associated infrastructure is crucial to foster or secure the investment on such measures to compensate the damaged economy, and credibility could be with high priority. So that we are supporting the capacity development, the infrastructure developments, but I should be very concise and quick, so I will stop it. Thank you.
Merci de la JICA. Et c'est avec vous que nous allons boucler cette deuxième session consacrée à l'impact de la crise de la pandémie de la Covid-19 sur le secteur des hydrocarbures en Afrique. Et sur ce, je voudrais vous inviter tous à rester en ligne et à permettre à M. Birol, Dr Birol, vous avez la parole pour introduire les deux derniers intervenants pour les remarques finales. Je vous rends votre présidence.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. As everyone can see, this is not Dr. Fatih Birol. He had to step out just for a few minutes, so he asked me, I'm his acting deputy, to take over to introduce our two concluding speakers, and then Dr. Birol will be with us at the very end for his own concluding remarks. So apologies for this minor change in program. I'd like to now invite our two special closing speakers to turn on their cameras. Commissioner Amani Abu Zaid from the African Union and Dr. Kande Yumkela from Sierra Leone. Two individuals who don't need an introduction given their extensive efforts over many years on energy and a variety of other key issues as well. Welcome to you both. We're delighted to have you here. Let me first introduce our first speaker, Her Excellency Dr. Amani Abu Zaid, Commissioner for Energy and Infrastructure of the African Union. The IEA signed an MOU with the AU in 2018, and we very much value this partnership. Madam Commissioner, please, over to you for your concluding remarks.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished participants, first, I wish to express my gratitude to Son Excellence, Monsieur le Ministre Cissé, Minister of Energy and Petroleum of Senegal, and to Dr. Fatih Birol, the Executive Director of IEA, for organizing this roundtable and mobilizing such a stellar turnout. I would like also to acknowledge the participation of the ministers from South Africa, country currently as President of the African Union, and from Egypt, Chair of the African Union Ministerial Committee for Energy, Transport, and Transcontinental Infrastructure. Excellencies and distinguished participants, the roundtable made it clear that energy was not spared by the COVID-19 pandemic, due to containment measures, which impacted national revenues, national and regional investments, and pushed our utilities to survival levels. This event also confirmed yet again the pivotal role energy plays and how it is a vital underpinning of our response and to build resilience, help recovery from this global crisis, from powering healthcare facilities, supplying clean water for essential hygiene, to enabling communication and digital services. That said, we should never lose sight that still more than half of African population are not electrified, and that 870 million Africans are without access to clean cooking, and that women and girls die from breathing cooking smoke. This is happening in a continent that is richly endowed with energy sources. Thus, considerable work needs to be done in a sustainable manner using all available resources to bridge the serious energy gap in Africa and soonest. It is promising to see that the energy mix in most of our countries is improving and that the share of renewables is inching up gradually. An acceleration of renewables across all sectors is required to move closer to address the impacts of the crisis and also reaching goals of Agenda 2063, the SDGs, and climate agenda, especially given that the costs have reduced substantially and combined with improved performance and cost reduction of storage systems. Such energy option will complement, of course, the traditional resources. Increasing levels of small-scale embedded generation can drive smart grid technology development with direct application and benefits in mini-grid and hybrid power solutions for access in rural, remote areas or peri-urban areas. Energy efficiency is another important area of use of energy. This is to complement our national, regional projects, as well as the African energy market, all necessary for Africa's development and industrialization, as, for instance, mentioned by His Excellency Minister from Ghana. Excellency, the COVID-19 has affirmed the impacts of shocks to global supply chains and will be a further driver to localize technologies. Therefore, we should also consider important economic opportunities to develop local technologies, create employment within the region in local manufacturing, construction, operation, and maintenance. This can be done in partnership with other African expertise and developers, and global as well. A key factor here is policy and market certainty, which are necessary to create an attractive environment for global players to invest in local African manufacturing and capacity development. This was mentioned by His Excellency Minister from Côte d'Ivoire. Flexible gas-fired generation is also important, leveraging Africa's considerable natural gas resources, especially for energy for cooking. This is likely to present attractive returns and interest from investors, especially if investing in a portfolio of natural gas and renewable energy projects, as said Madame Lautier. I am pleased to report, Excellencies and distinguished participants, that the African Union Commission has also taken steps to develop the emergency plan to fight COVID-19 and address its challenges through our specialized Ministerial Committee on Energy, and extensive discussions are still ongoing with various partners on the implementation of these measures. Some of them have spoken, whether the World Bank, EU, and also African Development Bank and other public and private partners. I also applaud the determination of our governments, as we heard, to include the private sector. We heard this from Egypt and from Morocco, and allow for private investments in energy. I remind everyone here that women-owned enterprises should be included and allowed fair share in our energy market and projects. That is one of the reasons we launched last year the African Network for Women in Infrastructure, which helps promote and give visibility to women all across the value chain in infrastructure. So maybe I think the EU mentioned the issue of women. That, of course, in addition to our extensive work through the various programs and initiatives, either in energy efficiency, smart transmission, energy market, renewable energy, and so on and so forth. Excellencies, as the saying goes, never waste a good crisis. COVID-19 has projected us into the future, maybe 5 or 10 years, pushing the digitalization agenda into our everyday lives. Africa is adopting digital transformation to make its development leap. We are urged to close the digital access divide as we are urged to close the energy gap, reminding that digital access also needs energy access. The Nexus Energy Digital can and should help us recover better and fast. And here I refer also to what was said by Germany. It is my hope that the important insights discussed today will be instrumental in shaping the responses that will help us strengthen our partnerships and build a clean, smart, equitable future for all Africans. And I thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Commissioner, for this excellent and very comprehensive overview. I really want to commend you to give a holistic view of the problems we are facing and highlighting a few issues which were not very much in general find a place, namely role of natural gas you mentioned, Madam Commissioner. It's a very important issue in addition to what we have discussed. And also you highlight another important element, which is the role of women when it comes to energy. It is definitely one of the cornerstones of the IEA's understanding and to make the energy really sustainable. I wouldn't say we need a woman, but women need men, I would say, put it in a different way at this time. So I hope so. At least you agree with me that you need men from time to time, Madam Commissioner. Thank you very much for this. Now, last but not least, we have somebody that I think all of us very well know and appreciate, Mr. Kande Yumkela from Sierra Leone, who was the Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General and the Member of Parliament of Sierra Leone, and if I may say so, a good friend of mine. Kande, the floor is yours, please. Can you send a message? Kande, we don't hear you. Kande, we don't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect,
Hello.
thank you. Please go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. Everything that I could have said has been said already, but I do thank you, Fatih and Minister Cissé, for including me to learn also from our ministers. I'm really encouraged to hear the enthusiasm and to see how much they're pushing hard to make sure that the gains we've made in energy access and energy transitions in Africa are sustained even in the middle of the crisis. I was also very encouraged to hear what the World Bank said. I emphasize that because it is the World Bank, African Development Bank, IMF, and others that are assisting African countries now develop their recovery plans. I do hope they will walk the talk and keep energy central in those recovery plans. A lot of it is focused now on the immediate emergency, but as ministers have emphasized, we need the finance ministers to back our energy ministers. So the role of the World Bank, IMF, African Union, and others will be important in making energy access central to these recovery plans. Allow me to just repeat what others have said, just to underline the importance of some areas. Industrialization, a number of the ministers have mentioned that. The population dynamics are putting pressure on us. The job crisis is what will follow the COVID crisis. We see youth unemployment in my country still stuck at over 60%. And we need to push for industrialization, growth of small and medium enterprises. And for that to happen, we need this energy access to be crucial for businesses going forward. So the jobs, industrialization, value addition, will be crucial. And therefore, we need the energy access agenda driven very hard. Second, a commissioner from African Union mentioned it. Africa needs all its energy resources. Yes, it is renewables, it is gas, it is hydro, used in a very clever way to move energy transitions in Africa, particularly energy access. Third, the challenge is big. Half of the population still don't have. But you have to remember, we are planning for another billion Africans by 2050. So ministers of energy, the job is only half done. The challenge is bigger. By 2050, we're adding another billion Africans. So you're really planning for about 1.4 billion Africans to have access to energy within the next 25, 30 years. So keep that challenge in mind. And therefore, the energy access challenge is big. Number 4, clean cooking. I'm happy Gambia and several others mentioned clean cooking. It is crucial. And also our colleague from Southbridge. We need LPG, we need gas in the homes. But more importantly, we need energy efficient electric cookers, pressure cookers, to be used in combination with mini grids. The mini grid challenge is big. There are places like my constituency where the grid will not appear in the next 30 years, but we can use renewable mini grids in those communities, which means in combination, we need clean cooking solutions. Electric pressure cookers might be part of that equation as we push mini grids. I like what Southbridge said. The choices we make on transport will be crucial, and Southbridge made the case. Africa has the luxury now of choosing to lead the hydrogen revolution, the renewable hydrogen revolution. I've seen the opportunities in South Africa where indeed companies are beginning to look into the production of renewable hydrogen because, again, they have, especially the Platinum Group companies, which makes me make my last comment. Globally, I'm happy to see Japan, the United States, EU on this platform. The minerals we need to power the green energy transition, that green energy future we see, most of those minerals are in Africa. Whether it's for the batteries, whether it's the platinum group of minerals. But at the same time, Africa can be a driver, therefore, of this renewable energy transition, the energy storage we need. So we need partnerships, and I commend the EU now for launching this Africa-EU, African Union new alliance. We have a major call tomorrow with leaders like Donald Kaberuka, Mo Ibrahim, and others. I see my colleague Damilola on the call. It is this new partnership that moves this transition, that takes Africa's energy resources, mineral resources, to help Africa lead this new revolution. This new revolution can be driven by Africa. We have the gas that can help us be part of that transition to renewables, but we have the minerals as well, and of course, all the sunlight. So Fatih, hey, let's have more of this, but let it be realized that it is win-win. Africa has to lead this new revolution, not just follow. Thank you very much. The Côte d'Ivoire's point of capacity building. We need capacity building along the value chain, whether it's on the regulation side, whether it's the design of new financial instruments, or in fact, these new hydrogen technologies. I believe capacity building, that we can be the leaders, and the partnerships in the energy trade will be crucial. So thank you for having us. Everything I could have said, our ministers and our leaders have said it already. But we're with you in this revolution. This new decade has to be Africa's decade. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kande. It is impossible not to agree with you. It should be Africa's decade, and I feel it will be Africa's decade, seeing the determination of all the policymakers and their level of enthusiasm and being focused on the key topics here. And this is really very, very encouraging. Now, for the some closing remarks, can I turn to my co-chair, Minister Cissé from Senegal. Monsieur le Ministre, s'il vous plaît, monsieur.
Je vous remercie. C'est d'abord vous remercier tous, Madame la vice-secrétaire générale des Nations Unies, naturellement, vous-même, Monsieur Birol, et l'ensemble des équipes de l'agence. les collègues ministres qui ont eu à participer, qui nous ont consacré cette matinée à la réflexion qui sera importante pour le futur prochain de l'Afrique et l'ensemble des participants. Mais je voudrais réserver une mention spéciale aux équipes techniques du ministère du Pétrole et de l'Énergie ici au Sénégal qui ont organisé cette conférence, l'ensemble des collaborateurs, mais aussi les équipes de l'agence qui ont travaillé ensemble pour nous permettre de nous retrouver aujourd'hui. Je voudrais leur décerner une mention spéciale et surtout saluer la pertinence des analyses qui se sont croisées aujourd'hui sur le système énergétique africain avec l'avènement de la pandémie liée à la Covid-19. Et les échanges nous ont permis très vraisemblablement d'identifier l'essentiel des défis et opportunités qui se posent au niveau du secteur. Une certitude demeure, elle est partagée, c'est que les pays africains n'auront pas de développement économique et social harmonieux s'ils ne règlent pas de manière durable la question de la disponibilité et de la qualité de l'énergie à des prix compétitifs et particulièrement en milieu rural. Le potentiel du continent est énorme sur tous les plans, il nous faut le transformer et c'est le principal défi. Et pour cela, nous aurons besoin d'investissements structurants dans le domaine de l'énergie pour mettre en valeur les potentiels, mais nous devons également être appuyés de manière active pour participer à la transition énergétique. J'ai l'habitude de dire que la première transition énergétique pour les pays africains, c'est de passer de l'obscurité à la lumière. Nous avons 600 millions d'Africains qui n'ont pas accès à l'électricité, d'après les chiffres de la Banque africaine de développement. Et l'Afrique est le continent peut-être qui pollue le moins, même si c'est le continent qui est le plus impacté justement par les effets du réchauffement climatique. Nous y contribuons le moins. Et c'est pour ça que nous devons travailler de manière coordonnée pour réduire l'usage de la biomasse dans notre bilan énergétique et éviter tous les reports d'investissement ou les retards de travaux dans les infrastructures de production, de transport et de distribution d'électricité, parce que la demande en électricité va augmenter, parce que la population africaine va également augmenter, nous l'avons dit, et parfois les contrastes sont saisissants. 1,2 milliard d'habitants, à peine 150 gigawatts pour produire de l'électricité. La France, avec moins de 70 millions d'habitants, a la même capacité de production. Donc le contraste est saisissant et nous avons un rattrapage à faire. Cela ne peut se faire que de façon coordonnée avec des projets de taille sous-régionale ou régionale. Au niveau des hydrocarbures, nous devons soutenir les pays producteurs de pétrole qui font face aujourd'hui à la chute des cours. Bien vrai que cette baisse peut profiter également aux pays importateurs avec la baisse du coût de l'énergie. Mais certains pays comme le Sénégal qui s'apprêtent à entrer dans le cadre fermé des pays producteurs nourrissent quelques craintes quant au retard susceptible de se produire dans le planning de développement des projets pétroliers et gaziers. C'est pour ça que nous devons challenger les compagnies pétrolières pour les amener à amoindrir au maximum les retards potentiels sur ces projets et reprendre les activités au plus vite pour éviter surtout les surcoûts. C'est cela qui m'amène à plaider pour le renforcement des échanges intra-africains, le renforcement des capacités, la nécessité d'harmoniser les exemples sur les spécifications des carburants propres au niveau du continent, et tout cela en parfaite cohérence avec la nouvelle technologie automobile et les normes environnementales, repenser de façon générale la réglementation et la politique tarifaire dans le secteur des hydrocarbures pour favoriser l'accès et baisser les coûts. Chers collègues, la reprise de l'activité économique doit se faire autour de l'accès des populations et des entreprises à une énergie moderne, de grande qualité et à moindre coût. Nos économies ont été parmi les plus dynamiques ces dernières années. Un pays comme le Sénégal, avant la Covid, avait une croissance constante de près de 6,5% par année sur les 5 dernières années, sans compter la chance que nous avons, comme le Mozambique, la Mauritanie et d'autres pays, de découvrir des jugements intéressants. Ce serait un coup dur si cette dynamique devait être freinée par la pandémie parce que certains de nos partenaires se seraient désengagés. C'est pour cela que nous ne pouvons sortir de la pandémie que dans un élan plus fort si nous travaillons la main dans la main pour assurer une énergie sûre, durable et accessible à l'ensemble de nos populations. Je vous remercie d'avoir participé et vous remercie de votre aimable attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Ministers, Excellencies, dear colleagues, it was a great day. We had so many ministers, international decision makers, global leaders, and some 10,000 people following this event live around the world. What I saw is that we have different preoccupations under COVID, in addition to our previous preoccupations when it comes to energy access and economic growth. And we share a lot of lessons from each other, what we learn from this experience. It's a unique experience, but we all learn. And I think we have, at least from the IEA perspective, I can tell you, a lot of points which were raised by the ministers were extremely important for us not to make the same mistakes in the future and prepare ourselves. One issue I want to highlight, many ministers highlighted very much. Many ministers highlighted the very issue that our problem is not only having access to electricity, but economic growth, industrialization. We need both of them. It is not only having access to electricity, it is good to having a light bulb, to having the television, refrigerator, but Africa needs to grow, Africa needs to prosper, Africa needs to industrialization, needs a lot of energy. Now, finally, this meeting reminded me once again how important it is to have international cooperation, to have so many colleagues around the world. It's a historical meeting, in my view, under these conditions, bringing so many ministers and the political leaders. And many of you said, starting with the Amina Mohammed in the beginning, the motto of the building back better. Yes, building back better, but building back better together. I think we have to do it together, and I think this meeting highlighted the importance of togetherness very boldly, and I thank all of you, but first of all, my co-chair, Minister Cissé, and we will be continuing to lead our work on clean energy transitions, economic growth, energy resilience with Africa and other countries around the world. Thank you very much to all of you, and we wish you a wonderful afternoon or morning wherever you are. Best regards from Paris. Thank you very much.